welcome back to House of R. I'm Joanna Robinson, joining me today to let you all know that Ashley Klein is a snitch. It's Mallory Rubin.
Joe, they put Dick in the washroom, and personally for us, I like Dick.
Really thriving. Mallory Rubin really thriving here in the back half of Stranger Things.
Thrilling.
Season 5.
Yeah.
Volume 1. Part 2.
For us, part 2. Yeah.
For us, part 2. We're here today to talk to you about episodes, or chapter rather, 3 and 4 of this batch of episodes from Netflix, Stranger Things. We already covered chapters 1 and 2. That's already existed in the feed. We also covered every previous season of Stranger Things. So that's existed in the feed. But that's what we're talking about today, and we'll get right to it after this.
This episode of House of R is presented by Target. Stranger Things has returned to Target, and it's time to visit Hawkins for the final time.
Step back into the 80s with righteous exclusives like a Funko Pop of Steve and the Squawk Van, the epic Squawk satin bomber jacket, and the Stranger Things You May upside-down capsule shaped like a walkie-talkie.
New items are dropping all season long, so prepare for one last adventure at Target.
All right, before we get into, we have a lot to talk about with these episodes, obviously. A few consequential things happened in Hawkins and the Upside Down, which we will talk about. Quick programming reminders, though, before we do that. Later this week, we are doing our last sort of official, I believe, best of the century so far, until we do another one that is a little bit more complicated. But this is our last one on one single topic. And we thought we'd end the year on fights. So best fights of the century so far. You guys have already sent a ton of great suggestions to us, hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. But we welcome them. We're talking one-on-one fights. We're talking battles, and we're talking verbal arguments. All of those are in the mix for this episode this week. We're gonna end with some acrimony. That's the idea here.
We'll see. Maybe I'll still convince you in the final couple weeks of the year that we should do an entire best of the century on sex scenes. Don't roll it out. Obviously, that'll be a part of our best of the rest, no matter what. But will it be a standalone?
So we are going to do a best of the rest. You guys sent in a lot of topics that we didn't get to do a solitary sort of best of the century episode on. So we're just going to do a rapid fire best of the rest episode before the year is over. We've got Fallout coming up. We've got Percy Jackson coming up. We've got Mallory has seen Avatar Fire and Ash. I have not, but I will before the end of the year. That is a threat and a promise. So that's a lot of stuff we have coming up on the feed. Not to mention our returning to Hawkins and the Upside Down again and again and again before the year is over. So Mallory Rubin. That's a lot. How can folks keep track of everything we got coming up?
I'm going to keep it simple. Follow the pod.
Follow
House of R on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch full video episodes of House of R on Spotify. Incredible. And you can watch full video episodes of House of R on the Ringerverse YouTube channel. So follow us there as well. Follow the Ringerverse on the social media platform of your choosing. We are on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, etc. And send us your emails because the inbox is always open. We have a ton of mailbag entries from the bad babies today who chimed in abundance on Stranger Things. They always come through. Today is no exception. Keep the emails coming. We have more Stranger Things to cover. All the other things that Joe just teased for the rest of the month and beyond. hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. Joe, back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much, Mallory Rubin, out there in the field. Listen, spoiler warning.
Yeah.
All of Stranger Things up through season 5, episode 4. So we have not seen any other episodes. We are on the same page as you. We have watched all the way up through the end of Sorcerer, episode 4, and we know nothing that happens after that.
No.
Do we have some guesses? Yes, and we will save those for Theory Corner, which is going to come at the end of this episode. Then even after PPS, after Theory Corner, we're doing something we're calling Stage Show Script Reader Corner. I would say we, loosely, I came up with that. We often have Book Reader Corner in some of our shows that we do. There is a stage show, Stranger Things First Shadow. We sort of alluded to it a little bit when we were talking in some of our previous episodes, and we were trying to figure out how to cover it. There are some clear markers of things that they are definitely going to connect from the stage show into the season. We're not going to talk about that until the very end of the episode, the end. So if you don't want to know anything about First Shadow, you have an opportunity to bail out, and we will warn you before that happens. So that is the current plan. Anything else you want to say, Mallory Rubin, about the plan, the spoiler plan today?
No. Do I have the opportunity to leave before the First Shadow section? So no, I'm kidding. No, spoiler warning has been issued. I think obviously on the Theory Corner front stuff, we'll hit some of it as we go contextually, of course. But as Joe noted, anything that comes from the play, that will be sectioned off in an appropriately safe space, and you will be warned again on the precipice of that section beginning at the very end of the pod. So safe travels today through the rest of the episode, which will be, I think, many hours long.
All right. Well, settle in, or, start your long drive that you're about to take, or get your chores going, or whatever it is you choose to do while you listen to us talk about Stranger Things.
Let me say this, by the way, on the front of many hours. I just want to shout out. I think a lot of people, watch Stranger Things at their own pace. Maybe they've come back from a holiday weekend. Now they're going to catch up on coverage at the top of this work week, et cetera. Great. But I just want to say quickly, to all of you absolute sickos out there who binged all 4 episodes of Stranger Things, night 1, then listened to nearly 3 hours of our first podcast on episodes 1 and 2, and then dropped multiple comments to us that were like, drop the next
part 2
right now. We see you. We love you. You're the best.
It's a great note for us. It's something for us to think about when we consider how to cover the rest of the season. Because we were like, we'll give them a couple days. Everyone's like, where's that part 2?
It was just genuinely really great to see and very amusing. I also got an incredible kick out of the comment thread in the Spotify app about one other thing to keep in mind. I'm paraphrasing. One other thing to keep in mind about Stranger Things dropping these episodes of the final season during the holidays is that, in this person's case, my mother, but it could be any family member, is just standing behind me watching this for the first time, having no idea what's going on, asking me what is happening every second. A lot of engagement with that comment. So it seems to be an experience that many people are having. All of which is to say, get in the comments on the Spotify episodes, get in there on YouTube, email us, the Bad Babies. We love to engage with you. We love to see you engaging with each other, sharing Stranger Things. Rare bit of monoculture, genuinely rare. So it is, I think that the early days of the holiday felt like maybe there was a little less shared conversation around Stranger Things than there would have been if it hadn't been Thanksgiving. That was how it felt to me, at least.
I know. I was like, oh no, is this going to not be as big of a thing as I thought it was going to be? And then it really kicked
right back in.
Yeah,
it's kicked right back in. So it's just fun to share Stranger Things with each other and all of you.
Digested their turkey or whatever else they were eating in other countries of the world where they don't celebrate Thanksgiving, and the memes are plentiful, the edits are plentiful. We're having a great time with the monoculture again. So speaking of emails, that's where we're going to start when we go to our opening snapshot. All right, so we will have emails from you all throughout. We got genuinely a metric ton of emails from you all. I read them all. They're amazing. We will not be able to get everyone, but we've got a ton in here. We're going to do a mailbag section, and then we'll sort of address a few throughout the episode as we go. We're going to start with a couple things. First of all, a ton of you wrote in with fond memories of peanut butter boppers, and I love that for you. I said I did not remember them, but you all do and have some great stories about it. So thank you so much for sharing.
Feels like we're missing out,
Do they still exist? Does anyone have a box that they've had since 1987 that they want to send our way? Will we eat it? I don't know. But
we've been through this before. Soliciting expired food from the listening public. You were then ready to sample it. Unsurprisingly, I was a coward and
you
backed out.
But we did get a box of cereal from a cherished listener. Okay.
We did.
On the Wig Watch front, a lot of people sent me a video that was going around, at least Instagram Reels, probably TikTok as well, from a creator called _casual_Brian, who was addressing the Lucas wig, which is something that I flagged before the season even started from promo materials. The true story is this. The actor Caleb McLaughlin, his dad cut his hair for the first 3 seasons. The 4th season, they gave him that very slick fade. He was on the basketball team, popular kid, just really good, nice haircut for season 4. The wig this season is because Caleb did not want to change his hair. He had his hair in braids. He didn't want to change it, so they put a wig on top of it. Great. But the _casual_Brian has a great video about a character reason why Lucas's hair might look like this. And it was sort of about like his worry over Max, but also the idea that they're in quarantine and like, you know, Karen Wheeler can't keep her perm fresh. You know, everyone's just sort of like, how did we all look in COVID lockdown? Not our sharpest, not our freshest. So that is sort of, that was the idea behind the character reason why Lucas's hair might look that way. If it didn't bother you, that's great. You were blessed with not being stressed out about wigs. And I love that for you. Our listener Mel wrote in with hitting on some time travel theories, which obviously we will get to. Mallory Rubin is thriving. When Holly said time travel, Mallory got so
great moment in my life.
Excited. Yeah. Mel wrote in about some of that, and I'm not going to get into all of the time travel stuff she wrote, but I just want to let you know that in her email, she referred to Vecna/Henry/1 as VH1.
Very good.
The whole email. I had never seen that. I don't know if it's a thing on the internet and I missed it, but I was just like, at first I was confused, and then I was delighted because she didn't explain it. She just started using it, and I was like, what's happening? Is it pop-up video time? But no. It's Vecna.
It's great.
Are you going to use it? Are you going to adopt it? VH1?
It's entirely possible. We'll see if it feels natural in the flow of the moment. But it does feel like the kind of shorthand that the characters in Stranger Things would actively embrace and appreciate, especially given their numerous conversations across multiple seasons now about how Vecna has too many names.
If
so
VH1,
a handy little mashup.
If
nice.
VH1 existed in the late 1980s, which I'm not sure it did.
Yeah, when did VH1 start?
I want to say that's a 90s creation, but I could be wrong.
Let's Google this puppy right now. When did VH1... Oh! Wait a minute.
When?
1985.
Ooh, but was it like local before it was syndicated, or was it always...
I'm gonna toss that one to Mike Wargon, CT, and Arjuna to continue to look into while we carry on.
Great.
But in theory, the kids could have known, you know?
The thing about VH1, which is a great, you know, we get another reference to, that's too many names inside of these two episodes about Vecna Henry 1. What's interesting is that, you know, given the way that we're starting to think about these characters, it might actually be more useful to distinguish when we're talking about Henry versus when we're talking about Vecna. That is something that, like, I'm starting to think about. Yeah. When are we seeing Henry and when are we seeing Vecna? Does that distinction matter?
You're going to throw in Mr. What's-It?
I might. Who knows? If I'm feeling wild and wacky. All right. Justine wrote in, this is lightly touching on foreshadow stuff. It's nothing major, but one thing that is revealed in the stage show and then we get context for inside of this episodes is that Henry Creel, according to the flyer of the stage show Oklahoma that Max sees and her wanders through Henry's memories, was in high school at the same time as Joyce and Hopper. Timeline-wise, this does not match up with anything we have seen before, but the Duffers like to play fast and loose with this in a way that might bother Mallory more than you might think. So, Mallory, A, how are you feeling about this timeline? B, how are you feeling about the idea that Joyce and Hopper went to school with Henry Creel, and yet no one has talked about that at all since the events of last season?
Let me say, we're going to get shortly to our more general thoughts on these two episodes and the first volume drop this season so far, which broadly I'm quite enjoying. This does not make sense and drives me crazy. Now, retcons and tweaks are a part of storytelling. They're certainly a part of ongoing long tail genre storytelling. I actually have like a decent amount of space in my heart for that. But I think this, and I have, as mentioned previously, and as we'll talk about more, later today, I have not seen the stage play for Shadow. So my exposure to that is genuinely limited to what you shared with me on the last pod and will share with me today. That's it. But because we saw that flyer, we see, Max is going through Henry's memories. We'll obviously talk about that scene more and just in general, everything that we learn from that sequence with Max and Holly. We see the flyer for Oklahoma. Joyce is in the hallway there. We know we're in a Henry memory. We see Henry's name on the flyer. We see all the other names. Steve Harrington's dad is there, right? We see Ted's name, Karen's name, Hop's name, like you said. Joyce is directing the play. First of all, Henry is established as 12 years old in season 4 in the 59 memory. So maybe Henry is a very capable student and has skipped multiple grades and made his way to high school. I guess that's possible.
Preposterous, but sure.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially given some of the context we got in season 4 about like how things were going for Henry with his teachers, etc. The larger, I'm like willing to accept, yeah, they moved him up a couple grades. They tried to put him in a situation he might fit, but whatever. It defies belief in episodes I really like largely enjoyed that this would not be a thing that the characters were all talking about with each other.
Exactly. I remember Henry. I talked to him. I remember that there were weird things that happened with his family. We went to high school with him, like blah, blah. That is so bizarre that they wouldn't be talking about it. And, in some cases, it makes Hopper and Joyce look like dumb, like that they're not talking about, that they're not all talking about it,
Yeah, like in season 4, just when we learned about the Creel family massacre, the events of 59 at the mansion, we had a much smaller version of like, it kind of forces us to reassess some of the comments in earlier seasons just about like how rare it is for bad things to happen in Hawkins. Right. Basically, it was already a touch odd.
Yeah.
But this direct association, like Henry Creel, I went to school with him. He was in a play I put on. Why would this not be something that people were talking about every minute of every day? And you could say maybe, okay, well, those conversations took place over
off screen, right?
37 spins of the QZ that we didn't get to see because of the passage of time. As we talked about last pod, more than a year and a half has passed between seasons. That's a long time. What is clearly established in the first couple episodes of this season, which again, we both loved episode 1, even though it was exposition heavy, is that they're more than willing to make room for a couple either sentences or chunky paragraphs to say, let's catch you up on a thing that happened and maybe that we talked about together and what we've been up to. So there would have been a way to account for it if they had been discussing it, which just kind of makes it seem like they haven't been. So that's odd. It's just
also, if they are changing the fact that Henry was 12 in 1959, also his family, according to the newspaper that they showed in the previous season, his family died in March, and this play is happening in November of 1959. So his family died in March. Inside Foreshadow, the timeline's different. And again, it's just like, I don't know why they felt like they needed to do all this, but this is what they decided to do. It makes no sense that the Henry that we meet in the Hawkins lab in season 4, played by Jamie Campbell-Bower, is supposed to be roughly the same age as season 1 Joyce and Hopper. Like those people do not look like they are age peers. So anyway, that's just a nit we have to pick. This episode is brought to you by Target. Heads up, Stranger Things has returned to Target, and it's time to prepare for one last trip into the Upside Down.
Head back to the 80s with rad exclusives like the Stranger Things Season 5 vinyl filled with epic tracks from the show and 2 awesome new Gatorades and vintage look bottles. The Stranger Things Upside Down cooler and the Citrus cooler.
New items are dropping all season long, so prepare for one last adventure at Target.
Okay, we're going from age corner, Joanna, to geography corner.
Ooh.
Last pod, we talked at length about the very Shire has been saved, but not for me coded 11 and Mike conversation. And then you asked a question that I think is important not only for Stranger Things, but for the Bad Babies and for us as we consider where we might want to retire one day. Where might we open House of Reeds? You asked, is there a place with 3 waterfalls?
I did.
We've heard from the Bad Babies. Here's what Kristen says. Living in Georgia, I'm always looking for locations and whatnot that I recognize from personal experience or from other shows filmed here. Pretty sure the quarry from season 1 was used extensively in Vampire Diaries. So when they mentioned 3 waterfalls, I immediately thought of the Triple Falls in DuPont State Park, North Carolina. It's a bit of a hike from the filming locations, but it would fit the description and is gorgeous. Joanna, what do you think?
This sounds delightful. So would it be, do you feel like it's everyone relocates to DuPont State Park, North Carolina, or are we going to see Mike and 11 on a hike walking by the Triple Waterfalls? Or should I just not take any of this as literally as I'm taking it? Is it just sort of emotionally 3 waterfalls? Are they going to open up a pub somewhere called the 3 Waterfalls?
Maybe.
Great.
But what about a D&D club?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well, because I think a lot of
Fire
people
and water, hellfire and 3 waterfalls,
A lot of people have suspected that the whole thing is going to end with everyone back together. All the common theory I've seen is that all 4 boys, if they make it out, which we don't know, but if all 4 boys make it out, it's the 4 boys and Holly or I would hope the four boys, Erica and Holly, playing a campaign together in the Wheeler basement as just sort of like a throwback to how it all started.
I mean, that would be absolutely wonderful. I would love it if they have a D&D campaign going and Lady Applejack is not there.
We riot at dawn.
We riot and we break out our poison pies.
All right, last but not least to round out mailbag is what I'm calling Concerns Corner with Casey. Casey wrote this great email, which was sectioned into questions, comments, and concerns. And in the Concerns Corner, she and both of her parents had very specific to their life experience concerns that they wanted to address. So she said, from my mother, a nurse, poor Max is going to wake up with the mother of all bed sores because it doesn't look like they've done a single position change in 20 months. I mean, someone's cutting her hair, right? It's the same-ish length in braids. I do have questions about where Max's mom is, but these questions go unanswered.
Well, and we have some feedback from Robin, some insights into the
the care.
Precision care from the nurses at Hawkins General. A lot of unlocked drug cabinets, very reminiscent of, though not exactly in that way, of a plot line on season 1 of The Pit. Took me back to The Pit. And so are they keeping up with the sponge baths, with the limb adjustments in order to avoid the bed sores? I don't know. Anytime I see the word bed sore, it makes me think of $1 Million Baby, and I get like PTSD. Very upset.
Hawkins, someone somewhere on the internet pointed out to me that Hawkins Memorial Hospital has the same logo as, I believe, the hospital from the Jason movies, Halloween movies. HMH is a different name of the hospital, but it's the same sort of font and layout. So a little Easter egg there. Okay. From Casey herself, a scientist. This one's for you, Mallory. Dr. K's appalling PPE practice. You should never take off a mask and then put it back on while still wearing gloves covered in nasty stuff. Gloves always come off first. Mallory, how did you feel about this goop moment from Dr. K? Tentacle Wrangler, Dr. K.
I thought this was appalling. And frankly, one of the great crimes from a character who is clearly a foe of consequence.
And precise.
Yes. Yeah. This is, I did gasp. I recoiled. It's the kind of thing where if we were doing one pod on each episode, maybe we'd spend like 10 minutes on this. That's not the luxury that we have. But it was something that I noted, and it shook me to my core. So I'd like to thank Casey for chiming in on this as well from the perspective of a professional.
Here's what bothered me most of all. From Casey's dad, a contractor, she wrote, cutting a hole that big in the floor would make the entire room collapse. She's talking, of course, about how they demolished the Turnbow house. Which doesn't seem like it was necessary, but perhaps wacky fun for everyone involved. I will say, I texted you about this, and then also watching the episode again with my best friend who just wrote a wine book. We gasped when the wine cellar of the Turnbow house was absolutely demolished by those menaces, the children of Hawkins. That was thousands upon thousands of dollars of wine just carelessly crashed to the ground. And not even when the Demogorgon fell, but because they dropped an entire floor on top of it.
That's the thing. Do we have time, as we've discussed already, we're very much on a clock inside of season 5 in Stranger Things. Do we have time to relocate many bottles of wine or very heavy shelving units housing the wine? Maybe not. But this was a tragedy. Was it as tragic as when the Demogorgon entered Derek's room and crushed the Mountain Dew can on the rug? I don't know. I mean,
for
1A,
you, not
1A,
so much.
1B.
Sure.
But yeah, I did mourn the loss of all of the wine as well. I am not a contractor added to the list, so I don't know if that insight on structural integrity is correct. It seems like sound insight and right. Yeah. I will say that house is quite large. Obviously, they're going for the Home Alone comps in many respects, right? And the Turnbows, real estate tycoons, as we learn. So I guess it's good news that they'll be able to replace their dwelling.
Sure.
But I was wondering when the wine shattered if it was distracting for everybody who is engaging in the booby trapping of the Turnbow home to smell all of that. I would have a hard time focusing on our Demogorgon plot. Yeah. Must have smelled amazing in there, but not necessarily in a way that helps you lock in.
These are questions we have for that entire episode, which I would say I think episode 3 is my least favorite episode of the batch of the 4, personally. But let's get to our season 5 stage setting. So just a reminder that these 4 episodes was dropped on Thanksgiving. We're gonna get another 3 at Christmas time, and then the finale is coming New Year's Eve. We love to work on the holidays. Episode 3 and 4 are set entirely, correct me if I'm wrong, November 4th, 1987. This is all one day into night, is what we're getting. And then also Friday, November 6th, 1959 in the flashback is something that is also on the timeline here. Do you think that the next 3 episodes 5, 6, and 7, will take place on November 5th, and then the finale is on November 6th? So we go back to where we started with the finale? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there are 2 possibilities. Clearly, the bulk of the season is going to take place inside of these few days. And November 6th, further amplified inside of these 2 episodes 3 and 4, as like the key date, right? It's on the flyer for Oklahoma. It was the night of the play as well. I think it's possible that the finale is set on November 6th. I think it's possible that the penultimate, basically the finale of the 2nd volume, is set then. And then whatever time travel Lupin sends us into another point in time for stretches of the finale.
A different November 6th. We'll just be on all November 6th throughout history. Sounds fun to me. Yeah, to be in November 6th, 1959, to be in November 6th when Will vanished, and then to be in November 6th, 1987 is sort of a good idea. Okay. Yeah. How do we feel? I mean, I already said that season 3 is my least favorite, but like, how do we feel about season 5 so far? And do the final moments of, you and I were exchanging some texts. I was a little behind you on my watch. We were exchanging some texts with some feelings about what was going on and how we were feeling about the season. And then we both agreed that the end of the final moments of Sorcerer was just absolutely cathartic, all-timer, incredible. So like, do any of the qualms we had leading up to it, which we will talk about, are they just sort of like burned all away out of our hearts and minds, and we're just like begging for the next installments of what's to come next? Like, how do you feel about the way this all rolled out?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying season 5 overall. I'm high on the first volume. I think that we, like you said, like you alluded to, we had a similar reaction. I said to you when I had finished, like, because I didn't want to give anything away, I think the way I put it to you is like, it's like 1 degree, just 1 degree, but it is 1 degree to action movie propulsive pace for me compared to like what I really love about Stranger Things, which is those quieter character driven moments. I think the fact that we are operating inside of this very tight time frame, and as discussed last pod, that all of our characters who've always been entwined in the same plot, but are literally like, we're working on this plan together, we're tracking each other's telemetry tags, like we are in the same places. It heightens that sense of like, we are moving toward our mission, the end game is here. That was my one kind of like pacing note that I think I felt a lot on the first binge. The other note, which we will talk about in more detail later, is like I really bumped heavily, genuinely heavily on the Hopper death fake out. Like
you and I both.
Yeah, we'll come back to that and we'll talk about it in detail. But I was like, I actually kind of can't believe they did that again.
Just the audacity, honestly.
Yeah. That said, the pacing stuff, I did not feel it nearly as much on a second watch through, like nearly as much. And in fact, because I think like I knew where the story was going, but also just like I had that, what you're identifying as like unbelievably intense and rewarding emotional response to not just the conclusion of the episode and, Will's sorcerer moment, going into those Spy Shack memories. Like we've talked about those memories and what they mean to us. I suspect we'll both talk about that scene more in a couple seconds here and as we go through the deep dive. But like then all the moments that build up to that, the Will and Mike conversation, all of the Will and Robin conversations, like I found, okay, we do have a few more of these conversations and quiet moments and character-driven, arc-centric beats. It's just that they're inside of a 90-minute action movie.
Right.
I also think that Derek is, to me, an instant icon. I think it seems like that's not everybody's opinion. I chatted with Chris yesterday, and that was not his opinion, but I loved Derek and got such a kick out of him and found that like levity to be much needed. So all of which is to say, overall, quite high on the season. longed for a tiny bit of a settling in to let me see Dustin and Steve hug each other and talk about their feelings together, or make lightsaber sounds together. I suspect we'll be getting more of that in the back half. But on a second watch through, I was like, yeah, this is just really good and really fun. And I think the internet seems to think that Sorcerer is the best episode of the show ever, which is fascinating.
I don't think is true, but I think that final stretch is some of the most invigorating storytelling that they've ever done.
Yes.
I don't think that sort of makes the entire episode as a whole, because that's episode also contains the Hopper fake out death, which I just think is really aggravating. But I like these first 4 episodes. Yeah. I think the word I used in response to your sort of action movie comment was this is feeling relentless. That's how it felt to me. Just sort of we were banging forward constantly, which is what the Duffers have said. We're not going to do a slow ramp up. We're just going to go. Yeah. Something that you and I, having lived through the end of Game of Thrones, is this wariness of the idea of we need big set pieces to impress people in the final. We need everything needs to be bigger. But stuff like the Turnbow Trap, I don't need them to demolish an entire house in order to have something like that work for me. So I think they're not going to change anything based on what we said now. It doesn't matter. It's all happened. I think the Will moment is so incredible. I was bumping a bit on Noah Schnapp's performance leading up to that. I felt we had been asking for more Will, and then some of his earlier episode stuff in this chunk was not working as well for me. But the conversation with Robin, pairing him with Robin, which we talked about in the last 2 episodes, was really, really smart. The conversation with Robin, her part of it was so strong. Even though I found their laugh at the end of it oddly weird and stagey and stuff like that, her part of it was so strong. And then everything that he does as he's processing in the final moments of Sorcerer is so strong that I'm now excited to see what happens with Will going forward. When reading, right up until then, I was maybe I was wrong to ask for more Will. And then I was completely rewarded. So the next question we wanted to ask ourselves when we've been doing as part of our rewatch is what in this stretch of season 5 feels most representative of what Stranger Things is/does. You and I had the same moment in the first 2 episodes, which is Mike talking to Holly. And I feel like we're going to have the same moment here, which is, as you alluded to, it's kind of hard to separate. Yeah. Robin talking to Will in the tunnels from Will having a spy shack memories to Will becoming a superhero. Yeah. All of those things are connected. The way that emotionality or vulnerability or all these other things become a strength and a power that you can use to protect and defend people around you, which is a huge theme of these 2 episodes. An older character imparting wisdom onto a younger character, very Mike and Holly, very Robin and Will. Yeah. And just making, as we've been talking about throughout our Stranger Things rewatch, as we've been talking about with Buffy, making these real world emotional journeys that people go through as they grow up into something fantastical and supernatural is something that I know that we've responded to so much inside of this show. So what else do you want to say that you haven't already said about this stretch?
No, I think I'm with you completely. That's also the most emblematic to me. I think I would add in the Mike and Will conversation as they're all walking toward the tunnel at the Squawk that Robin kind of witnesses, which then not only is that when Mike invokes the idea of the sorcerer and Will's powers being innate, but of course also then Robin witnessing this broaches the conversation with Will that she shares with him about her memory of her childhood and the video and all of that, which we'll talk about all in more detail as we go through the deep dive. But I just thought the stitching together and building of those moments, the Will and Mike conversation, the Robin and Will conversation, which I thought was just so lovely. And Maya Hawke is God tier. I mean, always has been, but just incredible. The fact that Maya Hawke can give us something, that Robin can give us something Jesus, what? In response to Derek's suck a fat one, the genuine hilarious comedy, and then the most deeply rooted, heartfelt, vulnerable insights into questions of identity and discovery and embrace. really a gift to the show, and I think to all of the people watching it, and then the way that built into the Spy Shack. And I just really, I mean, it's like you're leaning forward on your couch, you're cheering, you're whooping. It's such a cool, fun moment as longtime fans of Stranger Things to get like to see Will wiping the blood away from his nose. The way that it connects to this like long running through line of the show, this idea of like believing that the superhero is there inside of you. And I think what I loved most of all about this, because as we'll talk about more, Robin's counsel to Will is so rooted in the idea of like, you already have what you need, right? It's inside of you.
Embrace all of yourself.
All of yourself, the totality of who you are. That is like so core to what the show's mission is. Not as a mystery story or a multi-dimension time travel story, but as a coming of age story, right? And to be able to pair that with another long-running central tenet of the show, which is your friends and your family and the people who love you, it's not about finding validation from them and needing that. It's about them helping you believe in what is already there and helping you embrace what is already there. And so to give us this crucial moment for Will, recentering him so fully in the story in such a thrilling, electric way, having him tap into the idea not only of his worth and his beauty, but his power in so many respects. And to do that by tapping back into the Spy Shack, Joyce, Mike, Jonathan, all of these crucial relationships in his life, I thought was like really rewarding as people have been watching those characters in the show for years. Like I'm getting emotional. I thought it was really lovely.
You and I were both crying through this when like watching young Will and Mike meet each other, watching Will and Jonathan build Castle Byers.
Amazing.
I got really emotional seeing like a younger Jonathan for some reason, just like real, and like the way in which he had to like step up because his dad Lonnie sucks and all this sort of stuff like that just like made me really emotional.
The sign for Will the Wise. Like
I was crying over the Spy Shack memories, and then we get this like badass reveal, and I think I figured it out only a split second before it happened. So it's just one of those moments that is like surprising yet feels inevitable. And and you say inevitable, even though my concern coming into the season, and I talked to you about this a little bit already, but my concern was that Will would be a sacrifice, a victim. Will has to die. Will has to do this and all this sort of stuff like that. And I didn't like that as an idea. Or Will becomes seduced to the dark side. Will becomes Vecna's right hand. I didn't like that at either. Will becomes a powerful sorcerer who can stand with 11 and 8 as a trio of superhero teens to defend against, the evil powers that would invade their town. Incredible. I just thought it was so good. I love this for Noah Schnapp. I love this for the show. I love this for us. And I'm really excited. I'm like, do this for the rest of the season. Just like white eyes, snapping bones. I'm thrilled. Really exciting. So, and then we got, I'm not going to get into all of them, but I will say on the emotional front, the emails we got from the Bad Babies who really identify with Will's journey and talked about how much it meant to them personally, how much they wish they had something like this when they were growing up, maybe queer in the 80s or something like that, or even in the 90s, et cetera, really affected me a lot. So thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. And thank you so much to the show for presenting this story that matters so much to so many people. And, you don't have to be queer to identify with it, but if you are queer, like what an extra level of feeling seen and powerful, that, your queerness as a superpower is like something that is incredibly exciting. So, okay. On the sort of, we ran through this last time, but now we can do it with some context. These are the movies that the Duffers have cited as season 5 references. Children of Men. My question before was like protecting children, but now I think it has to do with the oneer of like Mike leading the kids through the battlefield that happens at the end. That's a very Children of Men sort of coded action sequence. So I think that's what that is there for. The Great Escape, that's just the text. They talk about it overtly. No surprise
wonderful,
there.
Genuinely wonderful stuff.
The Lost Boys and Home Alone. This is booby trap stuff in episode 3. If you've seen Lost Boys, they do a similar sort of like booby trapping the house. It also happens on A Nightmare on Elm Street. Is also booby trap for Freddy. So we love to booby trap vampires and housebreakers and monsters from other realms. Okay. The Cell and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. This is very exciting to me because this is Vecna's mind palace / traveling through memories, which I can only hope we will do much, much more of in future episodes. How excited are you for that? Like, how much of that do you want? Like, my desire for that is sort of endless.
As much as they'll give us. Yeah. And like, again, I have not seen the first Shadow play. I am still a little bit baffled by like, just based on what we understand about like that being a very Henry-centric story, I'm a little bit baffled by, especially given that came out. It's not like that's been out for a decade. It came out between seasons 4 and 5 and seems to center on information that will be very present in the final 4 episodes of a 10-year running show. I just find that like incredible and is not something. Now, we're like source text people, but I think it's different to say like you could watch this other thing easily, or like you could go like get this book at the library very easily versus like you must go to Broadway
or the West End,
or like read this on Wikipedia. Like,
I know, which is how I absorbed it, like through Reddit threads, which is not my ideal way of absorbing any story. But
for
like
an end game of a story you've been invested in for this long,
it's bizarre. We had one of our listeners wrote in with the math of like if every show had been sold out on the West End and Broadway,
this is how many people could have seen it.
This fraction of the larger Stranger Things viewing audience, like even if everyone could have teleported themselves to the theater, so yeah. Very bizarre. I will also say Eternal Sunshine, obviously a movie I've seen a million gajillion times. The Cell.
Dynamite movie.
Perfect. Honestly, perfect movie. The Cell is much more about understanding the psychology of a monster. So I wonder if this is like getting into like the how and the why and the creation of Vecna sort of thing.
I hope so. There are very few things I enjoy, genuinely. Very few things I enjoy more than like real villain origin story stuff. Yeah. Always, I knew I was special. Always, I knew there was something. Tomaridel. Yeah. So I want obviously like a lot of time. Given that we only have 4 episodes left, I know they're really long, but like that's not a lot of sheer space. So I want obviously a lot of time with the people we've been with since the very beginning. But yeah, I'm really interested in as much Mind Palace, Kamazat's stuff as we can get, and just in understanding Henry Creel and how we got to this place and the connections, the parallels, but also the distinctions across the character set. I'm very invested in all of that.
And something to think about specifically with The Cell and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is that how creative those directors who are just absolutely visionary directors got with sort of depicting the idea of like a crumbling memory or, a fantastical depiction of a memory, stuff like that. So we could have we have Max sort of, pulling paper off of a wall and climbing through like that. We get a taste of it, but I wonder how much more exciting they can get in terms of the visuals when it comes to that. So I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Me too.
Back to the Future.
We're living, dude. We're fucking living.
Flux capacitor, Great Scott mentioned the beamer tearing into the Upside Down, very, of course, DeLorean coded.
Yep.
Worth noting that the Back to the Future travel date is November 5th. 1985, 1955, but we are right in that time zone. And then our listener, I think it's Cassie, but spelled with only one S, so perhaps Casey, but says she thinks the billboard in the Upside Down, the Turnbow development billboard, might be a Back to the Future reference because obviously Lone Pine, Twin Pines, all sorts of development stuff in Back to the Future, and also
no question,
also the Mr. Sandman needle drop, which Marty McFly also hears when he goes back to the 50s. So,
that the styling of the Turnbow, of the fact that it is a real estate billboard, but also the kind of like painted illustration of it, very Lion Estates, Back to the Future. No question. Yeah, I am absolutely delighted by how present the Back to the Future references are in this season. It's a thrill.
Just more mounting evidence that Mallory will get all of her time travel dreams coming true. Terminator 2.
Mm-hmm.
Per the Duffers, Vecna is based on the T2 Terminator, relentless, violent, searching for children. Also, the Vader sequence in Rogue One, they referenced as like when Vecna comes in at the end of episode 4 and just sort of tears through people, pulling pins out of grenades and all the other things, that they wanted to make that feel like Vader slashing through the hallway in Rogue One, or the Terminator just sort of plowing through people on his pursuit. So
the Vader, not only the Vader like charge down the corridor, but just that initial shot of Vecna like through the film of the gate, and the initial kind of like Vader, the lightsaber activating and the red glow through the fog, very, very Vadery. In a way, I quite enjoyed, and it's just a beat after that we start really focusing on Groot instead of Vader.
Very Grooty.
That's a real tonal shift, gotta say.
Very Groody, absolutely.
Very Groody.
Groot-tastic. Like,
will you be talking? It's Wig Watch always, but it's also Fit Watch. Like, will you be sharing any commentary on the like spiky twig shoulder pads that Swole Vecna debuted in this stretch?
I love that you call him Swole Vecna.
It's bulking season for Vecna. He's been
no Instagram reel. I saw a great Instagram reel where someone was like, Vecna dropped the waist training routine because like he has like a little bit of like a pot belly in his previous guys, and now he's just like CGI'd like down to twigs in his middle. So it's like bulking out but slimming, cutting also at the same time. All right, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. We talked about this before, but this is more Mind Palace stuff. There's a character played by Patricia Arquette in that movie who could pull people into her dreams. There's a character called Will who becomes a wizard master and can fight Freddy in the dream space. So this idea of like the kids uniting in the sort of the Henry Mind Palace that they're stuck in, Holly transforming herself into Holly the Heroic. Anyway, just like something in that sort of dreamscape, ordinary children becoming superheroes. We've already seen a taste of it with Will. Like, is this something we feel undoubtedly we're going to see with Holly? Will this be able to happen to all the children who got taken at the end of episode 4? We see a child army of superhero children. That would be exciting, to me anyway. And I'm with you, by the way, on Derek. Derek in episode 3
fucking rules.
Episode 3 aggravated me. Episode 4, one of my favorite characters of all time. Like Joyce coaching him to become delightful Derek. Really, really good stuff.
I mean, we've got
guided meditation. Really good.
Exactly. We've got dipshit Derek, we've got delightful Derek, but we've got dogma Derek, and that's my favorite Derek. Just the absolute best. Feel the sand
really
under
good.
your butt. Incredible.
Accompanying with the whacking on the forehead. Just really good stuff. Okay.
Fantastic.
Last but not least, Poltergeist. So we've already talked about how Holly comp with the Carol Ann character from Poltergeist, a girl being taken, et cetera, et cetera. But Will literally gives us a "they're here" in episode 4, which I thought was like a really excellent little Poltergeist nugget. So yeah. Some movie references that all make sense now. Thanks so much, Duffer
They sure
Brothers.
do. Interestingly not listed anything to do with Harry Potter, which could not be more core to the interpretation of these episodes. We'll obviously be talking about the Harry, Voldemort, Will Vecna comps, which we have been doing since season 2.
We have.
And that was, I think, as central as an influence and reference as maybe any other pop culture touchstone.
They're not saying
date.
it. I think they're not gonna say it, but it is it's clearly
just so clear.
Yeah, something they're drawing.
The parallel is undeniable.
That's plenty of preamble. I think we should now get an hour into the podcast.
An hour in? We said it was going to be a long one.
I suggest we begin our deep dive. All right, so we're not, I made the notes, so it's my rules, and we're not going to go exactly in chronological order. I've done some like character groupings. Like, I think we can do all of the Holly and Max stuff together because it doesn't really touch the other storylines that much. So we're just going to go character groupings in rough-ish chronological order is the plan. We are going to end, don't worry, with Will the Wise.
Yes. I apologize in advance if I talk about something in the wrong spot.
Oh, no, I'll
do my best.
No rules. This is how I decided to organize things.
But
we can go off the roadmap anytime we want. Into cave systems in Nevada, through hospitals, into high school hallways, do whatever you want in the dreamscape that is our outline today.
Because you abhor a crevice.
Oh my God.
Abhor a crevice, Joanna.
Henry and I both hate a crevice. Henry and I, strong anti-crevice energy from Henry and me. Okay. So we're doing Holly. This is a redux of our earlier section, which was Holly in Wonderland. Holly and Max in Wonderland. I guess before we go through all the things that happen here, let's just jump ahead and start with, how did you feel about the Max reveal? What I remember from our texting, because again, I was behind you, was we both saw this coming and we're still incredibly thrilled by the reveal nonetheless.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've been talking about this for some time, going back through the prior seasons, just briefly discussing the trailers. It's like, I'm loosely quoting something you said a couple pods ago, but like, they weren't just going to keep Sadie Sink in a hospital bed. No. I mean, she's one of the strongest performers in the show, and Max is a beloved character and a crucial one. And then the fact that Max was the character who penetrated the Mind Palace in season 4, and we got all of the like, wait, Max is dead, but okay, 11 went into like the void and something happened and woo, we unwent. Okay, like this was obviously going to be crucial. Frankly, the only surprise I think is that we had to wait till the very end of episode 3, and then really it's episode 4, chapter 4 that we're spending with Max. So that was maybe a beat longer than I would have anticipated for Max to come back into the story. But Max was always going to be here. I think this is really, really smart as a way to do it. I think that the connection between Max and Holly is like a pleasant surprise. I think pairing those characters that would, other than our like, I've been borrowing Holly's crayons at the breakfast table to do a really good drawing of the Grail Mansion.
That to me stuck out as like one of those things that I felt sure they went back and like put Holly in that scene so that Holly and Max could have like met on screen. So that when Max is like, do you remember me? Holly, who is now 5 years older, even though only a year and a half has passed, is like, yeah, I remember you.
Yeah, though she does say, yeah, you like skateboard and you're always wearing a Walkman. She doesn't say, yeah, you like had a really loud conversation in my kitchen about all of this supernatural stuff and something about like another dimension. We all remember the details. This is of course what Holly the Showtime classic The Affair taught us, is like we all remember different details about chemo.
Holly was busy light brighting the like proto iPad. She was just sucked into her iPad moment with her light bright, not really paying attention to what was going on around her. Okay, so yeah, and I want to say like Max in this Holly the heroic on a hero's journey.
Yes.
Max being the sort of Obi-Wan Kenobi-esque figure that she meets is just like an excellent use. Something that we're going to talk about throughout is the pure pleasure of seeing these kids who we met as small children become the sort of protectors of the smaller children around them. Watching like Mike and Lucas throw their arms in front of small children just said like something like did something to my heart. So watching same. Max here become like the guardian, right? Is a really good use of her. I will say I got an answer to something that I was confused about, which is the wig work on Sadie Sink this season, and they explained it thusly. She cut her hair a bit so it was shorter than it had been before. Basically, she's wearing a wig with the braids and a wig with the curly hair, and I was wondering why with the braids, and it's because they were flipping back and forth between filming her in the braids and her in the wild curly hair, and so they had to wig it up in order to be able to like do those transitions in a day. And so I was like, okay, my heart is at rest and I understand. Okay, let's go back to the beginning.
You're the best.
It was bothering me. Let's go back to the beginning of Holly and Wonderland here.
Okay.
My Persephone and Hades like spidey senses were tingling when Holly was eating the blackberry.
You can't eat the food.
You can't eat fruit.
We talk about this all
especially.
the time.
Don't eat fruit in the underworld of any kind. So,
I get it though. Like the cream, the heavy bowl of cream, the fresh pancakes. Now, if Mr. What's-It said, yeah, blackberries are your favorite, right? And then I was like, I never told you that. How'd you know? And he said, just a hunch. I would be like, are you reading my mind?
You were like, absolutely not.
Are you reading my mind?
But Holly's like, time to have a dance party and make some cakes.
They are delicious. Yeah, they are delicious. I like taking the idea of like a childhood easy bake oven, this play space for creation, and literalizing that with an oven and an actual like
it's great
fresh baked good in the grill home. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff.
Something that I found really interesting is that the writers confirmed that Henry's brown suit that he wears as Mr. Wesset is based on Brenner's brown suit that what we see him wear the day of the massacre in the hospital. Henry is, of course, stealing children, just like Brenner did. Will 11 have to be the one to point that out to him? I don't know. Well, is this something he will figure out on his own? We'll see. But that has to come back. This hey, you realize you're doing exactly what was done to you, right?
Yes.
Is this something you really want to do? What do you make, speaking of dance parties, what do you make of the significance of Henry giving Holly music when music has been used as a defense against him? We got a Tiffany cassette at play.
Yeah. I was fascinated by this, had a real moment in real time. And I don't know. I just think it's clearly something we're supposed to be asking and wondering about. Max and Vecna were having a decisive showdown when Kate Bush Patronus allowed Max to escape the Mind Palace in season 4. We see in these episodes in this season that the music nearly pulled Max to safety again.
Why was she not running?
The tape loop is not long enough.
Why was she not running? She just stands there.
Rubbing the hand, almost feeling it's so sweet that I forgave the stillness for a second. But Vecna has this knowledge. So to in theory, arm your prisoner with a means of combating your power is very notable, and I think something that we should be noodling on. This is a less overt version of it, but even just, obviously we get the whole don't go into the woods, the monsters are there, Max is there. Vecna does not want Max and Holly teaming up, but everything which is mine is yours. This really active encouragement to explore, to go find not only Alice's, harrowing to see Holly put on little dead Alice Creel's dresses, by the way. What a good, I thought, really effective reminder of what Henry Creel did to his family and then to many others after. But to also find the Boy Scout chest in his room, where the spyglass is, the little pack, the scarf that Holly will put on, also a map/drawing that I was zooming in on as much as I possibly could to try to decipher. And I think I saw large opening, but couldn't parse much more than that. But why give Holly the music that could be a shield? Why encourage Holly to explore, albeit with parameters, when exploring could lead to discoveries that ultimately make Holly a threat or allow Holly to escape? What do you make of this?
This is where I am tempted to delineate between Vecna and Henry. And this is where I am tempted to say that every time we see him in the Mr. What's-It suit, that is Henry. Whatever is left of Henry inside of Vecna. It's not clean to me because whoever he is, he's still part and parcel of taking children, which doesn't seem like a great thing to do. But there's what humanity is left inside of him. Is he actually arming these children to combat negative influences in some way? Yeah. This is something I brought up last week, or the last batch of episodes, when I was this idea of, is he saving them in his own mind? Is this something that he is saving them from? And is the Tiffany cassette a weapon that he is arming Holly with in some way, Yeah,
I don't know. I think that feels right to me. And I think this idea of the many selves also feels very in keeping with something the show is interested in many different respects and ways in exploring, to that warped nobility of intention point. I think the speech that Henry made to 11 in season 4 in the 79 Massacre flashback will come up probably more than any other thing today, other than all of the season 2 ties. One of the things that we talked about this briefly before, last week, but one of the things that he said is, I can make my own rules. We'll come back to that. This idea of creating your own world, your own reality. Yeah. I could restore balance to a broken world, a predator, but for good. Yeah. This is the self-mythologizing, right? A predator, but for good. I identify with the spider, the gods of this realm, but I know how to do it. Yeah. And is the path grim and bleak? Am I making the same mistakes that other people made that ultimately harmed me?
But for the greater good.
But for the greater good.
Yeah.
For the greater good. For the greater good. So I think there's that. I also, to this point, I was very struck. I think this supports what you're identifying here, by Derek and all the other kids also knowing Henry is Mr. What's-It. Because that means even though Holly is the one holding A Wrinkle in Time, it's not her name for him. It's his name for himself.
Well, I think all of those kids are reading that book in school together.
Do you think
that
they
grade
all on
is
their
all
own
reading?
were like, I'll call you Mr. What's-It? It felt to me like maybe he's like, call me Mr. What's-It, or think of me as Mr. What's-It. And then is he identifying with basically like a guide?
Interesting.
Potentially.
That
was like, that had not occurred to me before until rewatching the episodes when Derek and Debbie, little Debbie Miller.
I like Debbie Miller a lot. There's something really evocative about her.
I like Debbie Miller a lot too. I've got notes for the Miller parents and all the other parents of Hawkins, which is don't just the strange military
just put your kid
knocking
on a bus.
at your door, just take your kid away. What the fuck was that?
Don't worry, there are teachers with them. It'll be fine.
Oh man.
To go back to this idea of like Henry versus Vecna.
Yes.
We already talked about the Spy Shack sequence in season 2, one of our favorite sequences. And when we talked about that on our season 2 rewatch, we talked so much about the way in which Jonathan and Mike and Joyce were trying to remind Will who he was.
Yes.
Who is access the will you are inside of you.
You're in there, yep.
And we are the anchors to hold you here in this world. And if Henry didn't have that,
right,
the Henry that he is just winds up boxed into this little prison inside of the mind and is not sort of rooted in the reality the way that Will was, because he was surrounded by a more supportive family than Henry was, or something like that. So, okay.
Yes.
As we trip, to sort of enhance this idea, as we trip the late fantastic through Henry's memory, and it becomes clear that both Holly and Max are trapped in his mind, we have to remember also, and we brought this up before, but Vecna mentioned a couple times to Nancy, to 11, this idea of the people that he kills, he says, they're not gone, 11, they're still with me in here, and like taps his head, right? So
normal.
Like, that's
normal
something they set up in season 4, this idea of like, I store people up here in my Mind Palace. Great stuff. Really cool.
And let's never forget that the part of the reason we got that clearly very crucial bit of canon is because Vecna was basically like taunting Nancy for not remembering enough about Barb. Barb, crucial here at the end of all things. Oh, God.
Okay.
That's my one reservation, you know, on all the memory stuff.
Oh, is how important Barb is, or whether or not Barb will show up.
Memory.
You're so worried about Barb showing up. Okay. We've already covered a lot of this other Max stuff. I do have like a song corner I want to get to in a second, but anything else you want to say about the use of Max?
Oh boy.
Here.
Geez, let's see. I liked when the map, what's the technical term for when you put the map on top of the moving pictures?
Like an overlay sort of thing?
Like, my brain. That gave me a very kind of like Rings of Power and Lord of the Rings like style ping in a way that I found enjoyable given how many Lord of the Rings references we've had across the show. Here's a question I would like to ask you about this location. We'll obviously talk about it more elsewhere in the pod later today. But just in terms of a visual choice, or maybe I'll just, I don't know if this is a question. It's just an observation. We're going to talk elsewhere today about the upside down wall that many of our characters have now run into, driven into, stabbed, or pissed on. The meat wall, correct. That wall, as Dustin, who is good at math, will tell us, is a circle. And Hawkins' lab is at its center. We'll talk about that more later. We talked last pod about how very Thronesian the first glimpse of the meat wall was in the first stretch of episodes that we covered. When Holly makes it up to this rock wall, which is obviously a different thing, I was once again like, this just looks like the wall in Game of Thrones, except it's not made of ice. And given, I'm like that, I don't know, that fact that we have two walls, one is a circle, one does not appear to be a circle, but still makes me wonder, given that one of the things we learn in this stretch from Max taking Holly and us through the memories. And there's like the pursuit, right? Henry's pursuit of Max. Henry in his bloodied, orderly outfit from the 79 massacre. So that visual roots us in the like Henry who killed all those kids. Henry who did this terrible thing in 79, right? The Henry who Elle discovered. There's an evil kind of glare and sneer during the pursuit. And then we get to this rock face. We learn from Max that Henry will not go in. It is a place that Max has been able to make like a cave lair, a home, basically. And
just scrounging and foraging junk from around the world.
Decent book collection, given the circumstances, honestly. Yeah. It's like, it seems like an all right place to hang out.
Yeah.
Max is forced to wear hiking boots instead of her preferred Van skate shoes. Like, it's not perfect. But needs must, you make do.
But for the costume department to be like, what would a tomboy dress like in the 50s? I think they did a great job with that.
Very, very, very good. And so, like, we see this moment where Henry does not follow Max in, and we see Max, and we hear Max describe the look on his face, right? And that it was like he was just terrified, is what Max says, terrified. And we can see that terror is supreme, and we know that in the time that has passed, that terror has held, and that has proven to be a more dominant factor than whatever desire there is to pursue Max in full. So then it's like, okay, this wall-like structure, the cave inside, obviously crucial. That's where he won't go. But the wall, and then you think about this wall that's a crucial thing around the key setting of the Upside Down. And I'm like, are those things related? Is the wall that sprung up in the Upside... And I asked this question genuinely not knowing the answer. Like, is the wall that sprung up in the Upside Down a shape that mirrors this clearly key location from Henry's past?
I hear you, and I'm open to it, always open to all theories. To me, because we're going to talk about the structure of the what I'm calling impenetrable meat ring, Vecna's impenetrable meat ring, TM.
Indeed.
That seems more connected to a lot of other structural ideas. And it doesn't really match to me, but it could be all things. It could be we see if somebody breaches the meat wall in a way. I don't know.
It's just an incredible series of sentences from you.
Thank you.
Phrasing TM. Yeah.
In a way that feels similar to watching Holly go, wander through that horrifying crevice into the cave.
Yeah, your nightmare.
Something to think about. On the needle drop front.
Yeah, tell me.
So Mr. Sandman, we got sort of in the reveal that Holly's in this dream space. We get Shaboom, Life Could Be a Dream was what was playing in the hallway of Hawkins High to let us know that it's 1959. I've collected a few other songs that we might maybe hear in future episodes.
A pre-playlist? You're pre-grieving, but you're pre-playlisting? I love it.
We've got All I Have to Do Is Dream. It's the Everly Brothers. Dream Lover. Tears on My Pillow, In Dreams, Roy Orbison, great stuff. Twilight Time, great haunted song. Because the thing that Rob and I talked about this when we covered Silo. They love to make 50s music sound haunted. If you want to do that in general, just use the ink spots anytime. You know what I mean? But like you can make there's an episode of My So-Called Life where they do this. There's an episode about the Vampire Slayer where they do this. Like make 50s songs sound haunted. Really great way to set the scene. So Twilight Time, you're 16, you stepped out of a dream. Life is but a dream. You could do I Only Have Eyes for You, which is the Buffy track if you wanted to. But like there's all of these options, and I'm just wondering, because they hit two really on the nose ones back to back. And I'm wondering how on the nose the rest of these sort of dream-esque, sleep-esque 1950s needle drops are going to be. I'll be curious to see.
I love that. I also, on the music front, like not needle drop corner, but score corner, I was struck like when they went into the cave that the scoring in that stretch, first of all, it's subtitled Ethereal, and that was certainly how it felt. It wasn't like scary, which was very interesting to me. I want to hit the even though we've already talked about it just very briefly, like it hit that Oklahoma Flyer again in a second. But I'm curious, like what you make just more broadly about okay, so we hear from Max to Holly when Holly asks, where are we? In a memory, which exists inside a world of 1,000 memories. I know it might look nice, but it's not. This place, this world, it's a prison. Henry's prison.
Mhm.
First of all, I'd love you to do a little eats, shoots, and leaves with us on the Henry's prison phrasing there, and what we might
a prison where Henry is being held captive. Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
I wrote that in my notes. Yeah,
yeah. And relatedly, like, what do we make? We're obviously very focused on the Max and Holly part of this. How are they going to get out? What have they seen? What have we gleaned from that? But like, why is Vecna? I keep them here. Keeping people in his own memories?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have a good answer for it, other than like it will be a good storytelling device,
which maybe is the answer.
Or the idea is like if he lived in the Creel house as Henry, and as he said in his monologue to 11 in season 4, he talked about like how false his parents were. Yes. and all this stuff. So like hated his family and felt hated by his family. And so what if I can remake that memory, only this time, like I'm the adult and I'm nice to all the children, and it is just a nice, beautiful place, and the paint is brighter and the sun is always shining. So like to take the worst part of his life as a human and make it this utopia. I need to look it up. One of the books that's in Max's cave is about creating a new utopia. This is a piece that was on Vulture by Keith Phipps, and he did sort of like these are what the references are. Mm-hmm. Walden 2 by B.F. Skinner.
Yeah. Yep.
Max's cave refuge contains a variety of knickknacks assembled seemingly at random, and a copy of Walden 2, a science fiction novel in which the psychologist B.F. Skinner depicted his idea of a utopian community. And this is a great sentence from Keith. He says, this seems to be there mostly confirms, as she insists to Holly, that Max is living in a prison. Nobody reads Walden 2 by choice. But this idea of like...
Sheesh.
I know. Great stuff from Keith. But like... But like this idea of he's created a utopia. You can have whatever delicious, creamy, fruity breakfast that you want to have. The cassette of your dreams is here. You can bake cakes all day and dress yourself as a princess in the clothes of my dead sister, and life will be a dream. Shaboom.
And I think to that point, it is notable then the distinction between where Henry starts people and where Max started, which was not by Henry's design, because Henry puts Holly in that utopia, right? In that alternate version of what his childhood could have been. So you're simultaneously gleaning this understanding, but also let me be, a predator, but for good, build the world that these other people have completely destroyed and failed to realize. What 11, as we assume and have been led to believe, did with Max, opened Max not in a utopic Creel mansion, but in the truth of the 79 massacre. That's where Max woke up. Mm-hmm. In the kind of thing that Henry would not want Holly or anyone else to see.
What he has buried. And I think what's really interesting is like...
under those harsh blinking lights.
We'll talk a bit more later, or perhaps we won't because we'll talk about it now. But this idea that like Vecna... we say this all the time. We're like, we'll talk about this later than we get there. We're like, we already did it. Anyway, this idea that Vecna's favorite thing to do, not Henry, Vecna's favorite thing to do is to unearth your buried trauma, your guilt, your fears, your shames.
Yes.
Right? And so like the way in which he talks to Will in episode 4, which has the opposite effect of what he meant, but the way that happens, the way he tormented Chrissy, the way he tormented Max, the way he tormented Nancy. And so like, what have we learned about our other characters? Will is the obvious like target on his back, walking around as a vulnerable, clutching the back of his neck and crying sort of character. But Hopper talking about Sarah a lot and the war a lot, like really giving us a blueprint of what Vecna might show him, or Joyce talking about her guilt about not being a good enough mother to Will and not noticing that he was gone for 8 hours. So these are characters telling us in these episodes what Vecna might exploit in later episodes. But this idea of unearthing trauma. So is that something that like this Henry, Mr. What's-It, in his brown suit who has created this utopia, is it going to be someone's job, be that Holly, be that Max, be that 11, be that someone else, to be like, this is who you really are. You're really the blood spattered orderly. You're really, you've really done this. This is what the Creel Mansion looks like. Not this beautiful, brightly painted thing, but this crumbling red hellscape where you put Chrissy and Max and 11 on a wall, etc. So, I don't know. Something I think about.
It tracks quite well with, the very thing that Henry identified with the most, those Black Widow spiders, right? He sees like a creature who has been actualized and can achieve what others cannot, this perfect being, misunderstood, as he says, and other people see a death threat and a monster. So there's that superhero monster idea. Right. Again.
And this is what I think we're constantly barreling towards, is the reflection of what Rubin says, right? Which is like, when I looked at those homeschool movies of myself, and I just like had to embrace all of me.
I was so free.
I was so free. I could fly, right? That you could fly aspect coming back, embrace all of me, and how that is reflected in that Brenner quote that you and I highlighted from season 4, which is like, monsters and superheroes, it's not that simple. Right. We don't live in that binary. You have to embrace all of it. And so for a Mr. What's-It Henry living in his fantasy of like, I'm the good guy, you have to reckon with the fact that you're also the guy who did this.
Right.
And you can be all of those things. And that, this is all leading towards what I believe is like a Henry redemption arc. But, I love a redemption arc. So I don't think he gets to live happily ever after, but I think he gets to sacrifice himself for the greater good. That's what I think happens with Henry. So
it would certainly be one more reason to give Vecna a Vader entrance.
Well, yes, but also I was going to say, which is something Voldemort never got around to doing. So,
we'll come back to the moldy Voldy stuff at the end when we talk about the Will Sorcerer moment. But, not only did he not do it, but in the final confrontation, that is the opportunity Harry gives him one more time. Like, try for some remorse. And he can't.
And it's like, nah.
And he won't.
It's like, nah. All right. 2 more things before we leave this sort of dream space. One is, I'm curious if Max is dressed as someone real from Henry's memory or just a random tomboyish 1950s outfit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Given that Holly is dressed in Alice's dress, we will get to the cave stuff that we know some answers. It will be in our stage shows section. We'll talk a little bit more about the Oklahoma Flyer in the stage shows section, though I can't say that very easily. But I do want to give you a chance to talk about the Oklahoma thing. But the Max is someone from Henry's past. Could be interesting. What do you want to say about the Oklahoma Flyer?
I like your wardrobe corner. Theory corner thing there. That feels like that. That feels.
It's such a specific outfit. You know what I mean?
It's interesting just to think about. This is ultimately like whatever, but like I think this was on both of our minds actually in a different stretch of the story when 11 is able to like walk through, in theory, Akers' mind after he has like left the room. So this question of just
level up, baby.
Yeah, this question of how these like physical spaces are navigable and what is inside of them. Obviously, those examples are a little bit different, but like, is every single thing in one of these Henry memories something that he actually remembers? That was a part, like that he has a reason to remember,
right?
Or is the space just kind of like, does it like autocomplete?
Right? Because does AI fill in the background? Because we don't see him necessarily in that hallway scene. His name is on the flyer, but we don't see young Henry Creel there. Maybe he's there and we don't know.
They're still trying to figure out how to make him look older before they show him to us in the back half of this season. They're like, wait a minute. This guy's supposed to be 12 and look 9. This isn't going to work.
What did we do? And then I just want to say, since we can't not do the Harry Potter comps, I just want to say, like, suck it to the pensieve. Like, you can't go around the corner of someone's memory in the pensieve, can you?
Yeah.
But
that is a good example of like, okay, there's like memory stuff with the pensieve and Harry too, but we're gonna do it totally differently, so it won't just be Potter comps about.
It's different.
I think on the we've talked about the flyer mostly. I think just like Oklahoma, Friday, November 6th, 1959. We obviously already talked about the date and the very obvious significance of that. But relatedly, like one night only being the right next to the date on the flyer, it says one night only. And that just feels like it further puts a spotlight on the significance of that date, not only
November
in
6th,
the history of for these characters, but that date and the story of our show and this idea of returning to that moment. And then, so Joyce is the director, and this we get Steve's dad passing through and tossing the flyer that Max picks up. Great stuff from Papa Harrington, starring Hopper, Karen, Patty Newby. More Patty stuff coming at the end of the pod in a safer space, but obviously, like Newby, that's Bob's last name. We know that name. We know Bob Newby.
Bob the Brain.
Bob the Brain. Like, we love Bob. We miss Bob.
Talk about a character that everyone talked about how they went to high school with him.
Exactly. Alan Munson. So there's an Eddie family tie here. And then Ted. So, and then it says, and introducing Henry Creel as Curly.
You mentioned Karen, right?
Karen and Ted both being here because famously they've always, in the entire history of the show, always been the same age.
Absolutely, canonically.
Definitely not a retcon. So, like, I think we just obviously like have to note that a lot of the next generation of children who are directly tied to these events with one Henry Vecna with VH1. There you go. I said it.
It's good.
VH1.
It's really good. It's satisfying.
Connect to this prior generation that shared this one night only experience.
Production of Oklahoma.
Definitely appropriately aged Henry Creel. That all just feels really notable and significant.
Doesn't the flyer say in introducing Henry Creel?
In introducing, called up Judd? Today. Okay, wait a minute.
As Judd, right? Is that what it says? Or did I make that
Curly?
up? No, not Curly. He wouldn't be Curly.
I thought it said Curly, but I was assuming it was well, we could check. What if they had to like do like an Erica Lady Applejack? Tap into the middle school population for Hellfire, really promising youngster over in Hawkins Middle. One night only.
Wait, he is playing Curly. That is absolutely insane. Just in general. Okay.
I don't know what that means because I'm not a theater expert like you.
High school theater corner. Let's say
tell me.
At best, he's a freshman.
I mean, Joanna, even that defies belief. What if they're like, he's like a senior? I mean, what?
A freshman playing Curly and the lead in Oklahoma? I don't think so.
I see.
I don't think so.
Okay, interesting.
No. Huh. This is Joyce, I have some questions for your casting skills.
Joyce, not a very good high school theater director. That's what we're learning here.
I don't think so. Let's just say that I thought this was really effective, like however I feel about all of this shit. Really effective casting for the young actress that they got to like double Winona Ryder. And then they used Winona Ryder's voice, but like it's just like I thought that was a good use of like that's definitely young Joyce inside of this,
Great stuff. This is of course the stretch where we hear Holly say the words time travel out loud, which was thrilling. Somehow I was in another time Hawkins 30 years ago. Time travel. Dun, dun, dun. Now, we don't think that's going to be the only version of time travel we get, but it is an interesting way to give us a kind of time travel. So that's really fun. And then we get the like Camazotz just said out loud, and we know because it's been released that is the title of episode 6. And that is a crucial location in A Wrinkle in Time, which has been very present in these episodes of television. So
if you're watching episode 5 and you're like, they're surely going to get on this episode, I would hold my breath. I would not hold my breath because I'm guessing it's probably going to happen in episode 6, Escape from Camazotz. All right. Einstein-Rosen Bridge. Speaking of time travel, raise your hand if you were thrilled to see Mr. Clark again.
I am always thrilled to see Mr. Clark. I love a science corner with Mr. Clark. And when a lesson he is teaching the kids, now Erica, her favorite class, she was enraged that they interrupted it. And I support her as always. I do miss and long for the days where Dustin was calling Mr. Clark, interrupting one of his dates.
Oh, yeah. She's having a movie night.
Or when Joyce would just like knock on his garage.
And he's listening to Weird Al. Mr. Clark, what a legend.
The gift that always kept on giving.
I loved seeing him here. Again,
thrilling.
This is like, this is a much smaller version of this, of the Kali reveal. But like, this is a real, like, we're using every piece that we can as we wrap things up here.
Yes.
Mr. Clark is here. Raise your hand if you think the wormholes he was talking about will come into play going forward.
My hand's up if you're not watching on video.
He says another galaxy, another time, even. Mallory perked up. And how much of that hunch is based on the episode 7 title, The Bridge? So episode 6, Escape from Chemazots. Episode 7, The Bridge. Here is Mr. Clark giving us a little download on the Einstein-Rosen bridge, a concept we know that Erica understands and could maybe explain to other people later if she so cares to. Raise your hand if you think his diagram of said Einstein-Rosen bridge bears more than a passing resemblance to the structure Will was painting in the McCorkle barn. I'm raising my hand on that one.
Yes, I definitely think so. We'll talk about the number 12, 12 hands on the clock time. That's what I think for sure. It also relatedly looked like kind of like a phoenix to me. There was something which I think also fits this idea of like time traveling, through a wormhole, in the pursuit of some sort of rebirth.
I think it looked a bit more phoenixy before he started painting little children.
Yeah, when it was just like the flaming wings with like a center. But yes, definitely looked wormhole-y as well. Okay. And Will is a talented
trance artist.
Season
two trance artist Will making a comeback. Also,
and painting in a
farm.
Different. Yes, we've medium. We've gone from crayons to paint.
True.
So that's nice.
He's a multimedia artist. Well, he was painting in season 4, just like completely low stakes.
You're the heart,
rolled
Mike.
Up canvas that he just carried around with him everywhere. It's totally fine. Okay.
You're the heart, Mike.
I do want to say I saw an Instagram reel of someone had timed when Erica's like, you have 1 minute and starts her watch.
This was incredible.
Someone timed it and it is exactly literally 60 seconds inside of that screen.
Never doubt Erica.
No.
Ever. The fact that her watch like beeped and went off, and so whether it actually been 60 seconds or not, that the character was like, I'm serious about this. I have set the clock to hold you to account, was just absolutely wonderful and like truly delightful. I thought that was great. On the chalkboard in Mr. Clark's classroom, we see closed timeline curve. I am not a physicist.
Add it to the list.
So I had to Google that. But then when I did, I saw a lot of stuff about going back in time and grandfather paradoxes. So that's exciting.
I think whatever happened, which is the lost explanation of time travel, I think is what I always prefer to cling to.
I mean, the time travel season of Lost is a shared favorite.
It's less messy than the Endgame version of time travel, which I dare not try to understand.
Though gave us a very amusing conversation about time travel and pop culture references about time travel.
But so whatever happened on Lost is my preferred idea of time travel. Okay. Last but not least, before we leave the halls of Hawkins Middle, hopefully not for the last time, I want to shout out the 1980s. I don't need to pull out every single piece of pop culture that we get, but I did perk up when I saw the 1980s David Bowie Reed poster in the Hawkins Middle School hallway. The Reed posters were in like every single elementary school library. Ours was the Yoda one, which I a couple years ago tracked down and now have on my wall in my like library hallway in my house. I have my Yoda Reed poster, but
library hallway, you are the best.
It's just a hallway with some bookcases in it. So I almost said my library, but I'm like, it's not a room. It's just a hallway with some books in it. But like, but the Yoda Reed poster was like, I remembered it from being a really young kid. And I was like, you know what I want to find? That poster. But those celebrity Reed posters were like so iconic. And David Bowie and Yoda, equally important icons of the 1980s. So
no question. This has been one of my favorite things about my Buffy experience so far is all of the Sunnydale High posters that I'm like, yep. Remember that one. Great stuff. Love to look at hallway posters in schools, high school or middle school. Love to look at chalkboard scrawls. And the other thing that I noticed, other than closed timeline curve, is test, Space and Galaxies, Monday, November 6th.
It's a Monday. Good to know.
And there is a time travel wormhole test on November 6th. I wonder if that will be relevant.
I believe Erica will probably be studying for it on the 5th. Should she need to give anyone a download from her note cards, her Nancy-esque note cards that she might have.
Some note cards coming back. That would be fun.
That would be really fun.
I love that. So there's, all these crews. The night Oklahoma was
freeze frame Rubin
staged. Everything with Will. Freeze frame Rubin. Oh, the freeze frame Mahoney. What an honor. Yeah. There's a test. We're marching toward this date. It's all very
What
key.
happened? Here's my question. What happened November 6th, 1969? Are we going to go there? 1959, 1979, 1980, whatever. Okay, anyway.
The Upside Down, Frozen. So we can't find out there, but we can find out elsewhere. Maybe, another spinoff about.
Speaking of the
Bob the Brain.
Sure.
Bob the Brain. What was Bob up to in 69?
Nerd stuff. Okay. Speaking of the Frozen Upside Down, we're going to talk about Dr. K, 11, the Hedgehog, and the Tentacle. It should have been the name of an episode, I think, but here we are. Okay.
That would be a great and very Stranger Thingsy.
The Hedgehog and the Tentacle, I think, would be a good one. The Hedgehog and the Tentacle.
Very the Flea and the Acrobat.
Yeah. Mallory, you love beef jerky. This is one thing I know about you. You love beef jerky. Are you jealous of 11 and Hopper's endorsement deal for beef jerky?
Listen, we've had a lot of notes over the years for Jim Hopper. His behavior, his choices, how he's conducted himself. But I've never once had a note on his snacks. Before stealing the Todd Father's vehicle in season 3, we got to witness what would Jim Hopper in a moment of need grab from a convenience store. And that guy got a Slim Jim.
Yeah, snap into a Slim Jim.
Told me all I needed to know.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I'm not surprised that a meat stick or a beef jerky is in the pack. As you know, one of the snacks that I bring on any flight when I'm traveling is jerky. Often turkey jerky, sometimes beef jerky.
I do know this.
But there's you need if you're out on the road, you're out in the world, you're on a mission.
Protein.
Or you're just getting on a plane and you might be hungry. You need jerky of some sort. You need trail mix. I don't know a lot, but I know that. So I thought this was great. And I thought that of the sometimes we have a really heartfelt, beautiful moment. Sometimes the advice and the parenting here, we've got some feedback. I thought, pair some protein with your Eggo extravaganza, whipped cream, Reese's Pieces, Sours was.
I have some questions about. I personally have some questions about the sodium intake here, but
Tell me.
Definitely better than the Eggo monstrosities they were eating before. So,
oh man,
we have a lot of questions about what 11 knows. She still doesn't know how to talk in complete sentences. That's fine.
Where are you on that at this point in the show? How are you feeling about the state of things on that front?
Fewer obstacle course runs, more this is how a contraction works runs for 11 is what I would say. But here's my main question.
Okay.
Why does 11 think peeing on a thing means you know what it is? This is her conclusion. Detective 11, bad guesses across the board.
God.
That's definitely Vecna they got in the hallway. Clearly not. Akers peed on the wall. Maybe he knows what it is. What?
This was extremely strange.
What?
He peed on it. You told me he peed on it. I guess it's a way of reminding us that these people are very young and maybe fixate on odd details. But I guess this was supposed to be comedy, and I did not totally.
I guess you wouldn't pee on a thing if you
didn't
knew
think it was dangerous.
Right. If you knew that it was a thing that arms could reach out and grab you by the throat and pull you through or something like that, maybe you wouldn't take your dick out in front of it or something like that. I don't know. Right. But I was just this is such a weird conclusion. He peed on it. Maybe he knows what it is.
Very, very odd. Very odd. Jane still has some learning to do.
Better or worse than when Lucas is if it's hard, we'll make it soft. That's a good thing to do.
I got such
questions.
Got such a kick out of that whole all the kids are making dick joke sequence that I didn't I didn't pause the way you rightly did on the implications of that.
Lucas is like, if it's hard,
that make it soft. I guess it's like, because I'll be, that was real. Like, I will take the power away from Dick.
Boobs feel like
through the tunnel.
Boobs feel like heavy bags of sand moment from 40-year-old version. Like Lucas doesn't know how erections work. I don't know.
Oh my God. Great stuff.
Just have some questions. Okay.
On the 11 front.
Please.
The piston on the wall stuff, it's an important question. It's a good note. I gotta say, we talked a little bit about this last pod, that like just one of the notes on the season is when we're really far ahead of the characters, it's like a little bit inert.
Yes.
I was feeling that with the 11 Hopper stretch of these episodes, because it's not in this case just that we're further ahead. It's like at this point, the other characters are also further ahead.
She's like, it's definitely Vecna in that hallway. And everyone else, meanwhile, is like, Vecna's bopping around, stealing children. Yeah.
And it's not like it's inherently uninteresting to watch characters like reach the wrong conclusions or err a little bit on their path to eventually some greater clarity. That can be very interesting. But in this case where we have such a propulsive, high tension, we are on the clock, it's like, we had a lot of time and a lot of scenes with Hop and Elle and Kay down in the upside down with the infiltration of the base and the Vine and that poor fucking scientist who was like, I mean, granted, everyone down there is doing bad shit, but like kind of just going about his day and then got taken and planted in the
closet.
In the closet. It's like
tough.
Bullet fodder. That was rough. But yeah, it's like we just know that the thing that 11 thinks is true is not. It also is like a little bit of a demerit, I think, because it's satisfying when Hop, which he does in other aspects of these episodes, has to kind of like own that he's been wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously this is a parallel with Joyce and Hop, as we've discussed, with like their very overprotective tendencies. I thought that we'll talk about this elsewhere, maybe, but like Will and Joyce discussing this, and Will really saying like, on the one hand, I'm really sorry that I talked to you that way, but on the other hand, like you have to let me
look how tall I am.
Fight, yeah. Look, it's not a very popular haircut anymore, but look how tall I am.
Someone feathered out my bowl cut a little bit, so it looks a little cooler, Mom. You have to take me seriously.
It definitely does look cooler. But like, you know, so we sort of, and it's not like the kids can't make mistakes, but like we want that moment of kind of like reckoning when Hop has to say, well, it's beautiful when he says, I'm so proud of you, I'm always going to be proud of you. But like we want him to have to be like, also, you're right, and I have to stop doubting you or gaslighting you into thinking you're wrong. But she is so wrong, and we know it the whole time.
Constantly.
So it saps those scenes of some of that tension. Odd choice, I think.
Let's talk about Kay. So our listener Justine,
where are you on Kay?
Not like blowing my socks off as an antagonist yet, but a huge improvement from Sullivan, who got burned alive. Tough stuff for a guy we didn't really like. Our listener Justine wrote in regards to Kay, said 11 cutting Kay off before she can say her actual name feels like she was about to reveal who she really is, right? So she's like, 11, I've been looking for you. And then 11 goes, I know who you are, right? So that is a classic, like, maybe she was about to say, I'm something else. I've seen a lot of theories, and none of them really tickle my fancy, so I don't have any strong theories here, because like some people are like, oh, she's actually Henry's mother. I'm like, that lady's dead. We saw all of her bone snaps. I think she's definitely dead. But
we saw Virginia Creel
did Virginia Creel then go to like science and military school? Like, what are we talking about here? So I don't think it's her. I couldn't tell you exactly who I think it is, but I'm intrigued by this idea. But what I feel for certain, whether or not her name is something different, what I feel for certain is that there was something like oddly tender in her approach to 11 that could just be scientific curiosity, because she has strapped up another child to machinery and appears to be tormenting her. So it could just be like, what a scientific curiosity. I've been looking for you. You're a scientific curiosity. But it's definitely not the same antagonism that like Sullivan was like, burn her, sort of about 11. So there's something different here. And I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think Kay's gonna turn out to be like a good guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's like another twist of the knife in terms of like what her true intentions are that we have yet to see. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think like the thing that she said to Hop during their confrontation. We obviously got some crucial temperature reminders in terms of and we do later as well when the flamethrower comes out and burns a demo, and Will and the rest of the hive mind. Yeah, right, exactly. Likes it cold.
He likes it cold.
But one of the things that Kay said to Hop was, it's like, okay, so you're the reason she's been so hard to track, the thorn in my side. After all of that effort to hide her, you bring her here of all places. Hop, you could tell he just wanted to interject and said, I really did not want to bring her here. Actually, I had a lot of feedback on her being here. Kay says, why? Why risk her life for the other? What do you know that I don't?
That's when I knew it was 8. That's when I knew it was 8. When she said the other, I was
the
like,
other. Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely, I mean, we know it's not Vecna.
We knew, unlike 11, we knew it was not Vecna.
So when she says the other, I was like, oh man, they're doing 8. That's great. Yeah, interesting question.
Yeah. So I get, we'll talk a little bit more about what we see when 11 walks in and sees Callie and the setup and what that might imply and what might be happening there. But just, what are Kay's motivations exactly?
Right, exactly.
Like, I this is actually, I will say, where I start to get just a touch nervous about how few episodes are left. And the kind of like third arm of the story. We've got all our heroes. We've got all of the Vecna Henry VH1 stuff. And then we've got this but obviously this has been as central as anything with Papa and Brenner and Hawkins' lab. Yeah. So
and we want 3 hours of Mind Palace and 5 hours of time travel. So
and 6 hours of Dustin and Steve hugging.
Yeah.
Please, God.
Something for Jonathan and Nancy to do.
Well, yeah.
We'll get there.
I guess. Yeah. But yeah, so is there enough time for all of that? But I am interested. I have no investment in Kay as a character, literally none.
Right.
But I am interested in better understanding still like the role of Hawkins' lab and the science and the pursuit of Brenner's program and what other people might be trying to do with that as well. So that's, I have a lot of space for that, I guess, at the end, but I am worried about literal space and how to,
Duffers, it's not too late to supersize those episodes. I'm just saying. All right, it is, but
they're going to be long. Those puppies are going to be long.
But I think not as long as we might hope they would be. Okay. Delightful Derek digging up Dick and the other kids.
These episodes were an absolute gift for note taking. Like it's just like Dick is leaking, all sorts of great little subheads throughout my notes. Wonderful stuff.
I'm really going to get out of your way for a lot of this section because I would like to clear the decks for you to talk about Derek Turnbow. You've already talked about him, but what more do you want to say about your Lord, God, and Savior, your new favorite character, the Riz God himself, Derek Turnbow?
He's just the absolute best. I thought that in terms of just the kind of plot mechanic and structure of the story, I thought that it was fun to see the gang kind of puzzling out and strategizing together down in the Squawk base, and Mike coming in and once again really playing I liked how you called the Wheeler kids, the generals last episode, and Mike coming in and really everybody's got holes and notes and questions, and then Mike's like, well, what if we did this, and any holes there, and even Dustin is like, I don't have any, actually. That was just kind of a fun and interesting sequence. On the Turnbow trap planning front, we love a Home Alone nod. That was all very fun. I would like to just spend a moment on Derek's room.
I believe you texted me something like, this is my ideal setup.
Yeah, okay.
I've been to your home. Your home doesn't look like this, but I think if you I think if you took all of the most potent elements from every room in your house and jammed it into one room, you could get kind of close to what Derek has set up here. We
certainly have enough video game stuff in various Adam gaming caves and corners of the house to approximate this, I think. But okay, Tina walks in. We're taken into Derek's room, and she walks in and says, it smells like ass in here, dipshit. And Derek says, probably from all my farts. Mom wants you down for dinner. Mom can suck a fat one.
Now, everyone needs a catchphrase.
We hear Derek say various people can suck a fat one so many times across these episodes, but this just absolutely killed me. The Turnbows, everybody talks about them like they're pieces of shit. We have the Erica, Tina, besties into enemies insight that's a key part of this plot. But in general, when the Turnbows come up, everyone else is like, these guys are monsters. They're pieces of shit. So like they're rich assholes who have like had a hand in events of like Hawkins management.
I mean, in general, I'm very like eat the rich, smash their wine collection, whatever. Yeah. The Turnbows, the parents don't seem that bad. They're very nice to Erica at the dining room table. They aren't like shitty, right?
Yeah, the mom more so. She's like, we really missed you. And the dad's like, we missed your pie.
Yeah. Fair.
But yes, we both had the same feeling on the dinner scene, which like calling back to Heather and Tom and the Holloway sequence in season 3. And like,
nobody took a wine bottle to the head.
No wine bottles to the head. Like, just some, you're poisoned by pie and or syringe and then you topple over.
Yeah.
But that incursion into such a highly domestic setting and a family setting of this like really heightened violence is I think always an effective thing when the show does. Derek's room, it took me back to being a kid and watching Richie Rich.
Oh yeah.
And thinking like, is this what it is like to
dream?
Be alive? He has in this room. So he's got an NES. He has a Nintendo, which like just came out, as we talked about in season 4 when they do the like Ameritendo gambit with Suzy Poo.
Right.
He's got a beanbag that he's sitting on to play. Adam immediately, I was like, what game is that? He immediately was like, Ghosts and Goblins. Identified it. It took him about half a second.
Right.
There is also an arcade cabinet. There's a Sega hang-on arcade cabinet in Derek's bedroom. He's got Domino's pizza box on the floor. We'll see the Demogorgon crush the Mountain Dew. He's got some Pepsi on the wall shelves. He has a fucking gumball machine in his room. This was the one where I was like, I would have killed for this.
Now that you lay this all out,
machine.
I don't care how they are at the dining room table. The fact that they have done this to a child's room is really bad parenting.
He's got a computer because he's got floppy disks all over the floor. He's got the Masters of the Universe bedspread, the NASCAR flag less. I prefer an F1 flag, obviously. Sure. It's a painful time for me to talk about F1, given what McLaren is going through right now. That's for another pod. He's got board games. He's got Battleship. He's got my personal favorite, Mastermind. That was when I knew, even though we're in a very like suck a fat one, Derek's a bully stretch at this point before he becomes Derek the delightful Derek. When I saw Mastermind, I was like, this kid's got something. Because that is a game for champions. And he also had a Rock'em Sock'em and those rule. So I just thought this room was fucking sick. And I wanted it. And I still want it.
How do you feel about the Garbage Pail Kids poster?
I feel fine about it. Yeah.
I feel pretty good about it
as an
emblem.
He had a G.I. Joe poster, the lunchbox too.
Can I take you on a quick detour through my podcasting history?
Please.
During the pandemic, before I started working at The Ringer, I had a show that I did with my friend called Feels Like the First Time, where she would watch like movies that everyone has seen, but for the first time. And I would always play games with her. And so we did a Mad Max one. She had never seen any of the Mad Max movies. And so before she watched the movies, I played a game with her where I was like, are these names of characters from the Mad Max franchise or are these Garbage Pail Kids? And the thing I didn't know about my pal Kristen Russo is that she had an encyclopedic knowledge of the Garbage Pail Kids, and she crushed that entire quiz. It was one of the funniest reveals that's ever happened on a podcast. I was like, what do you mean you have a PhD in Garbage Pail Kids? Anyway.
Not like when you did is this a fictional vampire or like was it like political officials or something with me? I didn't do very well.
It didn't go the same. No. Okay.
No.
Erica and the pie. I just want to mention a couple things. I love this as a thing for Erica to do. Love her stabbing Tina in the back with a syringe. A lot of people pointed out the description for Lady Applejack, which is, I'm a chaotic good half-elf rogue level 14. I will sneak behind any monster you throw my way and stab them in the back with my poison-soaked kukri. I didn't pronounce that perfectly, but I got there. So her stabbing Tina in the back with a syringe is very like Lady Applejack coded. Loved all of that.
Yet another prophecy inside of Stranger Things. That was all really great. Erica was very ready to poison that entire family. Did not
Erica whipping the part of her clothing off that was like meant to be like preppy coded, and she's just like ready for action was really funny to me.
This is great stuff.
speaking of the other children,
yes,
we get this sword in the stone moment, one of my favorite Disney movies, right?
Great one.
Where they're watching Sword in the Stone before they let the military just take their child away. Do you feel like this is just a precursor for our guy Will becoming a sorcerer, or something else going on with like the little snippet of Merlin? I mean, it's not cheap to put a Disney movie in your show. So like, what is this doing here, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's like Will the equivalent of Will pulling the sword with everything that happens in the sorcerer ending. I think the sorcerer, wizard, Merlin of it all. I guess there's like literally a character named Kay.
There is Sir Kay.
Yeah, so there's that. But yeah, I took it as like, putting us a little bit in that pre-Will pulling the sword headspace. But there are a couple other things as well. And it was a very like central transition and focus as the Millers were watching that. So that was interesting.
The Merlin Madame Mim wizard battle that happens inside of that movie, an all-timer, the shape-shifting, all that sort of stuff. So just something to think about.
What did you think of the actual like Home Alone Demogorgon? I've got a comment that I think you're going to find weird. Okay. Here it is. Tell me what you think of this. It's a safe space, right? I felt bad for the Demogorgon.
I didn't think they needed to do all that.
No, I felt bad for the Demogorgon. This was too much.
I didn't think they need to do all that. I think Nancy could have just shot him, honestly. She's a good shot. She's a quick shot. I think she didn't need to like, I'm sorry, I don't feel bad for the Turbos. They seem like bad rich people, but like, I don't think they need to carve open the floor and do all of that. I think they just wanted a wacky, fun set piece for us. But like, I mean, I will say, Lucas hopping over the carpet.
That was great.
Incredible stuff. And then when the Demogorgon comes back up and he's like, Mike, get him. Like, that was really fun. But what was, like, she already shot him. Mm-hmm. What was the point of Jonathan
screaming,
like, burning him?
Burning it.
And then, like, shoot him again? Like, why did we have to shoot him again? We already got the tracker in him. Is it a backup tracker? Like, what are we? I didn't understand the full plan, honestly.
So they light him on fire, I think, because, like, so that felt to me like a season 1 finale callback where they catch him in the bear trap in the buyer's home. And then they when he's lit on fire, he goes back. He flips.
So they're like encouraging him to.
I think so. Yeah, flip. Like we light him on fire, he's gonna flip. And then the tag will be where they need it to be, I think. And I guess the second shot would just be to not let him jump back up to where the kids are and could be mauled.
Okay. I guess. I mean, here's what I will say. Like, never pull your punches with a Demogorgon. Unless you're Mallory and you're like, I feel bad for him.
It just was so much
the barbed wire was stuff.
I just need to remind myself of what we saw our beloved Ted Wheeler go through. And then I'm back in the headspace I need to be in.
Let's just say it's the same guy, the same Demogorgon who clawed Karen Wheeler's chest cavity open when she was just trying to have a relaxing bath and a wine night at home.
And send some wine. Yeah, nobody's asking about Ted.
Not a single person cares.
I mean,
when Ted's in a coma.
When everybody's back together, Jonathan gives Nancy a hug and is like, are you okay? I'm so sorry. But like, obviously a lot of Karen-centric focus because they needed to ask her in the last stretch of episodes we talked about Mr. What's-It. Nobody wanted to just look at Ted? I know the doctors wouldn't let them, but like, guys.
I'm going to hop ahead. This is just a little skip. I'm taking a theory corner to read one of our favorite emails from Sarah, who says, people who are in comas can end up in this Henry's prison, however you want to punctuate that. You know who's in a coma? Motherfucking Ted Wheeler. 100% I think he's going to bust in at some point and save Max Holly, maybe more from danger in Vecna's dream /coma/my palace. I don't think that they're going to have these young girls saved by Ted Wheeler. I think sisters are doing it for themselves, but I love if we ever like flash to Ted Wheeler and he's in some whatever Ted Wheeler's golfing utopia is, like neocon utopia. That would be really funny.
Man, I just hope like we get one more moment with Ted and he's like a fresh plate of bacon. Someone brought him some new Reagan merch. Something to make Ted happy at the end. God.
All right. Joyce pep talking Derek into being delightful Derek and I genuinely think he is so delightful in the escape sequence. Gave me solid season 1 Joyce and 11 flashbacks when Joyce is like sort of pep talking 11. I mean, Joyce is very motivated by, you need to find my son, so get in that tank, kid. But it was just like very much like when she's not gallivanting around the world and she needs to mother, Joyce is capable of mothering quite well. And her like encouraging Derek to be his best self, I thought was a really sweet Joyce role for her.
Listen, sometimes you have fake Britannica conferences to attend, and that's just how it goes. Okay, the Britannica is Brian. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. Still an incredible choice in season 4. You know, the idea of like covering the turnbows with the pillowcases so they can't see, again, calling back to like Will being used as the spy in season 2, which will prove very pivotal at the end here. Derek being like, I'm awake, and they're like, you know, didn't you have 2 pies? And the way that he came into the story, all very good. I loved everything with Joyce and Derek. You know, calls her an evil child kidnapper. Wonderful stuff. On the Joyce as a mother front and how Joyce thinks about her kind of like guidance of these kids, it's not, you know, certainly not quite as overt as the like Harry Horcrux stuff with Will and Vecna. But the really like central role so far, we had everything with Karen, which we talked about last episode. You know, we made the Molly Weasley and like Joyce Summers comps, but like, I will stop you from killing my kid, even if it means my life, is of course also very Lily Potter coded, as is I think Joyce's stand against the demo here. So that feels like a little bit more of the motherly protection element being present here too. I know you alluded to this earlier, but maybe just because we're talking about Joyce and the kiddos, like I will say that conversation where Joyce and Will were talking, I really liked when he stood up for himself in the car. When he went out at the barn and, you know, great, like, you know, put a coat on. You don't want to like not be able to save the world because you can catch a cold. Loved that. I was sort of expecting him to kind of once again be like, let me be out on the front line and stop like feeling like you need to protect me so much. I was surprised kind of by the apology that he issued there, and then what it gave us. I think that the way that Joyce talked about her regret from that night and like not noticing he was gone, I don't know, I guess it gave me some real like child of divorce, like empathy for a single parent. I felt it really like broke my heart that Joyce was carrying that guilt around. It really hit me hard.
Who doesn't check in on an 11-year-old kid? Like Joyce, as we meet her, you know, you and I just did this full rewatch, but like thinking about how like harried Joyce is in the morning and like trying to get herself out the door and the kids out the door, and like, and then everyone thinking she's crazy in her pursuit of Will, like Joyce being so much more the main character of season 1 because Winona Ryder was the star of this show. Is something I think about a lot. But I think that I loved that scene between them. What I think is weird,
tell me,
given that it's been 20 months that this team has been like running, you know, missions into the Upside Down and stuff like that, out of the radio station, etc. Let's say it's not been 20 months. Let's say they've been doing that for like the last 18 months or something like that. Acting like she doesn't know who Robin is. She's like, I like your friend. I'm like, have you not been interacting with Robin at all? Like, have Will and Robin not been interacting this whole time? Like, has Joyce just been hanging out with Hopper and 11 at the obstacle course? Like, what?
Just eating Ted Wheeler's bacon.
Like, what? What?
Before it makes it to the breakfast table. Yeah, that is a good.
Super weird to me. So, you know.
Yeah, because they're all working together on the crawls.
Yeah.
That's like clear. Yeah.
So, like, would they not have interacted at some point? Robin is a crucial member of the team. She's the voice on the radio. So, like, that was really bizarre to me.
Great note. On the other hand, later, because Will has his many trances across these episodes, and you know, one of the when he's wakes and he's shaking and he's crying, and she cradles him, we get a little bit of the Joel, little Last of Us. I got you.
Oh.
I got you, sweetie.
Well, I love that the idea now is like, you'll survive this. Like when Will was doing this in season 2, they're like, oh my God, it's Will about to die. And now when like Demogorgons are burning and Will is screaming on the ground, they're all like, this is just a seizure and it will pass. Like, hang tough and it'll be okay. Do you know what I mean? That felt like more the approach to it.
Yeah, that's a I think really good observation. And I guess like the conversations that they have across a couple of these different, like, what's our plan, what's our plot, what has happened, and what can we glean from it, conversations is like, Will says at one point, I had this feeling he didn't want me there. I wasn't supposed to see it. Like the way they're puzzling out basically his connection to the hive mind. So we have the really like emotionally and thematically rich aspect of this arc. But then we have the kind of like literally what is happening with this connection and the hive mind and the mythology.
And I like that all that stuff is being puzzled out now because it's like Vecna's been in retreat.
Yeah.
And so it's like they haven't had an opportunity to explore Will's connection to the hive mind. Like that makes sense to me as like an urgent now discovery.
Yeah.
And I will say, Detective 11 versus Detective Will.
It's not close.
Detective Will way in the lead here. So,
and like, so Robin has the insight about this, like the idea of the overload, right? And the control center. So they're gleaning something about how they can navigate this connection and circumstance from that. And then of course, like later in the Mike conversation, there's the idea of like, well, like are you sure? I think this is what we're about to talk about actually, right? With like what happens with Joyce. Are you sure you couldn't stop it? Are you sure? Actually, like your mom probably didn't push the Demogorgon back. Like, so this idea of Will being able to gain some sort of control to act, not just as puppet, but as puppeteer, helps to contribute to why maybe that fear shifts into confidence because they're better understanding how to use, how to spin it so it's less the connection is a vulnerability and more it's a source of your power. Or
I don't feel like they had sort of earned that confidence yet at the point when Joyce is just like, just hold on, baby. But
no, that's because the Mike puppet stuff comes in a different part, and they're building toward it. Mm-hmm.
But let's go to unless you want to. I mean, we're veering around in time. Do you want to talk about all the dick jokes before we get to Joyce finding the Demogorgon, et cetera? Even though that happens,
just some rapid fire stuff. Hit
me.
Just the way that we get into the Great Escape comp in the first place. Robin just saying dick out loud. And then being like, did I say that out loud? Iconic. They put dick in the washroom, and personally for us, I like dick. Everybody's faces. We love a Stranger Things reaction shot. Often it's like when we're on the clock and everybody's waiting, they need Susie to share this number, but they've got to wait for a song and dance number. The look on their faces here, just incredible stuff. The various dick jokes across this sequence, just really wonderful. I thought that the lack of precision with the, look, you're shoving, they're using a shovel to pierce the top of the tunnel so that they can access. Derek did a great job, by the way. He was fucking there like, do we need Bond? Do we need Magnum? No, we need someone they would never expect. We need dipshit Derek. No, it's delightful Derek. He had the exact pace count. He had a wad of gum ready to stick that out of order sign on the stall. He was ready with all of his dogma.
Mike and Lucas fucked this up.
Exactly. They're
absolutely
hammering with no precision. The whole thing is like exact paces, timing, the beep through the hole in the G.I. Joe lunchbox so that you know when to whack a disciple on the head and send them through.
Too preoccupied with their dick jokes to Well,
it takes one to know one.
Isn't this very teenage boy?
It is.
Imprecise, overeager sort of gesturing from them.
Too preoccupied with the dick jokes, and then dick started to leak ahead of schedule. Very tough. Some great shoe stuff, I will say, across these episodes. They've released a lot of custom kicks. We got a high top field general on 11, a very focused in, like, Elle puts her foot up on a tree to unlace her shoes so that she can then silent jump. And I was like, they're selling that shoe. And they are.
It is placing,
Derek had the Converse on. We've got some great Sambas in the stretch. Just wonderful shoe stuff. And you really got to see the shoes because everybody's slipping on the water. So, like, excellent. So yeah, the dick jokes, everything with Derek in this stretch, just really fantastic, honestly. That was great. Okay, and we should say the Duffers use their this is their teacher, the kid's teacher in the barracks.
Drama teacher.
Is their actual drama teacher. So that was like a lovely thing to learn. I thought that was so cool.
Knowing that on rewatch just made me like very emotional. Yeah. It's very sweet. Okay, we're going to go back in time on our own timeline.
There we go.
To Steve's Beamer going full DeLorean on the farm. So as we already mentioned, Joyce's fight against the Demogorgon makes when I was rewatching the scene with Diana, she was she's like, no way could Joyce do this. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's because Will's helping, but nobody really knows that yet. Not even Will. But Steve coming through with the season 3 energy with the car to hit the Demogorgon and save everyone. He doesn't miss. He doesn't miss when it comes to vehicular manslaughter. So we love that. We don't love that from Landry on Friday Night Lights. We love that from Steve.
No.
So
I'm look, the Steve Dustin bickering, I'd rather not herniate a disc over a lost cause. Yeah, that's the attitude. It's more painful than it's ever been in these couple episodes. But Steve being like, wouldn't the center of the gate be soft like the center of a popper?
10 out of 10, no notes.
Really lovely and really great.
I want to say I was a little surprised by how inert the team, Steve, Nancy, Jonathan, Dustin felt inside of this section. But I can presume that they took a backseat, no pun intended here, because there's something great coming for the next stretch. Hop ahead like a few seconds if you don't want like any trailer spoilers, but I will just say the majority of the footage from the trailer that we haven't seen yet in the show seems to be some combination of Steve, Nancy, Jonathan, and Dustin, and also Lucas Max in the hospital stuff. So like, they have something big coming. And I will say, again, hop ahead if you don't want to hear anything outside of the context of the show. In interviews, a lot of the actors have been asked about like what their favorite scene was. And a lot of people have mentioned a Jonathan and Nancy scene that they like really loved. So something interesting is coming for these characters. What that may be, I don't know. But like, is it a proposal? Is it something else? I don't know. But this doesn't seem like the time, Jonathan. But
well, Murray would say it's the perfect time,
You do you.
Murray, who was like, you guys, you have the real shit, shared trauma way back when in season 2. He's still on his favorite corner there. Here's my note for all the shippers out there. We've done ship wars throughout. I've waffled. I've oscillated. Sometimes I'm team Jonathan and Nancy. Sometimes I'm team Nancy and Steve. I don't want Jonathan and Nancy to get married. And I actually feel like in a story, I'm not like actively rooting against them. I think I would be fine if it happened. But it feels to me like in a story where there's so much in a way that we love and it's beautiful. Young love, these like formative relationships. You've got a number of them across the character sets. Max has that great moment when she's telling Holly about her, Max's tale, and it's like, after all this time, he was still there. Like, tale. Yeah, with Max's tale with Lucas, right? Wonderful.
Not my mom. My mom didn't visit. Not
but
Lucas
is still there, holding my hand, playing me the music that did not last long enough on the tape for me to escape. I feel like some of these people who coupled up as kids should like not be together at the end of the show. That actually just feels kind of important. Doesn't have to be Jonathan and Nancy, but it could be.
I gotta say, I'm guessing that Dustin and Susie are not together right now.
Joanna,
you my guess.
Perish the thought.
Long distance relationships are hard in the best of circumstances. When you're going, okay, so on the Dustin front,
yes,
I will say I saw a great Insta reel edit of splicing together Max's depression season 4 with Dustin's in season 5. And I really like that comp. And as hard as it's been for us to watch Dustin go through this, and as much as we're missing that light atmosphere that he would bring to these dire circumstances, I've always loved the way in which, not you, Barb, the way in which like Billy's death, Bob's death, Eddie's death are treated as like there are serious ramifications in the next season. Joyce is really hung up on Bob's death, like after that happens. Billy dying, Billy sucked, but like it mattered to Max that he died, and it matters that Eddie died. And so like this idea of these teenagers stalking the halls of their high school, feeling alienated and isolated and angry and alone feels very right. Again, as hard as it is for us to watch it, as much as we're hoping there is a Steve and Dustin reconciliation around the corner. Something that Gayton said in an interview that I thought was really special and important, talking about Dustin's attitude right now, which a lot of people are not responding well to in the fandom. He says, basically Dustin thinks that if he's not miserable all the time, he's not doing it, meaning grief, right. So he pushes away the people that make him happy, right? So he's like, if I'm not devastated, then I'm not honoring Eddie's sacrifice. Yeah. And so I will push away Steve, and I presume push away Susie, so that I can stay in this I'm grieving him space, because that's how I can honor him. Now he's definitely going to learn in this season, I hope, that is not the way to honor someone that you've lost. They wouldn't want that for you. What is it? One of Eddie's final words to Dustin is never change, Henderson, right? And Dustin has dramatically changed because of his devastation. And it's understandable, but like, this is not what Eddie wants, obviously, quite obviously. Yeah. I also saw some really interesting explorations of the Eddie-Dustin relationship and the Dustin-Steve relationship. And as much as we like love the Dustin and Steve relationship when we do, I thought it was an interesting commentary that Eddie's emphasis for Dustin is like, you're Bridget Jones, you're perfect just as you are. Yeah. Don't change. I love who you are, exactly who you are. And Steve's is a little bit like, here's how you can be better. Here's how you can like change your hair and do this and change yourself to be cooler. Now, I would not accuse Steve of bad intentions or anything like that, but that is a different dynamic. Definitely. So Dustin flowering under Eddie's like, exactly who you are is wonderful, is a powerful thing to lose. So
beautifully said. I completely agree. And I think like that's part of what makes the relationships in the show so impactful for us as viewers and for the characters who are being enriched by them or struggling through them is because like hopefully these characters change each other, right? It can't just work one way. And so like I think that's one of the things ultimately that Steve has to learn, and like that's part of Steve's journey is like realizing that. And I think this is why, part of how like Dustin is in his state of grief and his state of pain and feeling not only like he has to be sad that he has to keep grieving in this way, but like he also, as we talked about last pod a lot, is like deeply frustrated and resentful that the other people around him are not championing Eddie's memory and hellfire and like carrying forth these totems of not just who Eddie was, but what Eddie represented in their lives, the way that he is. But like when Dustin is kind of lashing out at Steve by constantly like basically calling him stupid, which is like really mean.
Really mean.
I think that like one of the reasons he's doing that is because when you hurt somebody close to you, it's not, sometimes it's conscious, but sometimes it's like that subconscious tendency you have to really wound somebody in a way only you can. Like Dustin knows Steve well enough to know that the way that Steve sees his worth is like, you came to me for advice. You came to me to try to be cool. Yeah. That was the gift I could give you. And it's like, actually, Steve has a lot of other things to offer. He has like his loyalty and his commitment to staying true to the people who need him, which is like much more important than telling somebody what hairspray to use.
And I was going to say that like watching, again, all of them, but very specifically inside of the end of episode 4, Lucas and Mike protect these children and watching them all turn into Steve's is just like very emotional.
That was really good. Really good.
I love what you said. I hadn't thought about it this way, but I love what you said about like lashing out at people in the very specific, like we know exactly how to hurt, what the particular buttons are or whatever. We know how to wound people. And oftentimes that can be like a test of like, how far can I push you? And will you come back? Yeah. Will you stay if I push you this hard? So anyway, all of like the Dustin stuff is making me sad, but feels like logical character work for me.
Yeah,
so
I agree. I agree
feels
completely.
Wrong yet right. I will say the crash really annoyed me.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie has to be careful about where he steps in the Upside Down last year, and Steve is just careening through hell in a BMW with his eyes off the road. Something he already did in the van earlier in the season, which pissed me off. I'm like, eyes on the road.
Yeah.
Harrington, but like, full speed in the BMW in the Upside Down. Jonathan and Nancy are screaming in the back seat, and he is so distracted by his fight with Dustin that he slams into the giant impenetrable meat ring TM. Like, I hated that.
Yeah, I agree. That was a little, that
like
was silly.
You could have done it where it like came out of like the fog, like came out of nowhere. You know, if he's like driving carefully and the fog is like covering it, and then all of a sudden they're just like slam into it.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me than what I saw happen, which was just
right.
incomprehensible. So
yeah, I mean, I guess you could say in terms of the like lack of care in general with traversing the upside down, I guess you could say like the distinction between not wanting to alert someone versus like the
chasing a Demogorgon,
chasing them, and they're chasing it. But like, I'm with you completely. I think that was a little bit incongruous with how we have been trained to navigate that terrain, and then the like we're just not looking because we're fighting was just kind of silly. Yeah,
very silly.
What is your? Where are you with the impenetrable meat ring? And
TM?
TM and Dustin's. You know, I thought
Hawkins' lab is at the center.
Yeah, Hawkins' lab at the center. Impressive
work.
I'm not with Steve in this moment where he's like, we don't need to see the work. I was like, teach me. This is really helpful to know.
Very cool.
Because they had the other interference point. They have Hop and L's location. They have their location. So he can figure out and then see what's at the center. I
wish Jonathan had been like, haha, I knew I was right. You said I was full of shit. But guess what? I was useful.
Yeah. So... is the wall is the lab there because the wall was there and the lab needed to be at the center of this anomaly? Did the wall spring out from the lab at the center? Where are you with this?
I believe Vecna raised the wall.
Yes.
Around the lab. Mm-hmm. And the kids, wherever they are like in the lab or in just the other side of that meat wall. I don't know how I mean, I guess I did not look closely enough at his work to see how big the wall was in comparison to the lab. Is it like just right? It isn't just right around the lab. There's like still like miles to go.
Yeah, it's like around the town. Basically. Yeah.
Well, around like a part of the town. But but I have to imagine that they're going to find their way to penetrate the impenetrable meat wall and go to the lab. Like that has to be what their quest is, right? Which is exciting to contemplate.
So do you think that the 12 kids that Vecna is trying to collect, and despite Murray's, I thought, frankly, despite the rude commentary, thoughtfully crafted, like egg carton,
precious cargo
smuggling compartment of the
buckle your seatbelts, buckle up, kiddies. Yeah,
they're like, this is not very comfortable, actually, and he's like, fuck off. I got such a kick out of Murray when he was like the CPR child dummy. It's purpose and mystery to me. That's like what they're gonna use for fake deck. Very funny. Murray, always a riot. Because we get to see through Will's demo cam, Vecna cam. We see where some of the kids are plugged in, right? We see these like spires. That did not necessarily seem to me like spread out to the extent that the kids are in the ring all the way around like the hands of a clock, but maybe we just zipped really quickly through those views and they are in fact, rather than in a concentrated position. Like he wants 12 kids. Is this like the 12 apostles, the 12 disciples of Jesus, because Vecna is his predator, but for good God who is trying to craft his own world and his own following?
I think it has to be clock shit. I think it has to be clock shit. I think it's Vecna. It's Henry.
Clocks.
He's got a weird kink about clocks. Like this is definitely clock stuff.
Definitely
clock stuff. Go. All right.
Clock stuff go. Because he says about the kids with Will, he describes them as weak. He talks about them as like perfect vessels. And then in season 4, one of the things that he had said to Elle when talking about the spiders, like me, they are solitary creatures and deeply misunderstood. They are gods of our world. The most important of all predators, they immobilize and feed on the weak, bringing balance and order to an unstable ecosystem. So once again, he's like now using that language to explain what he is doing, and that mirrors the way that he identified with these other creatures. You know what else stood out to me, by the way, in revisiting that Vecna to Elle, Henry to Elle speech?
VH1 sort of combo monologue, yeah.
Everyone is just waiting for it to all be over, all while performing in a silly, terrible play.
Yep.
Silly, terrible play. One night only.
Oklahoma's not a silly, terrible play.
Oklahoma's great.
How dare you?
People love it, but maybe he doesn't feel that way about it.
Well, I think he thinks life is it's a very like train spotting, choose life, choose a career, choose a your reality is bullshit sort of speech from him.
Absolutely.
Okay. Rockin' Robin and Will the Wise.
Mm-hmm. The absolute best.
We already talked about this a bit, but I just want to highlight some language from Robin's speech here. And then again hit that Brenner speech from season 4, right?
Yes.
When she talks, I mean, speaking about using all pieces of the carcass, here comes Tammy Thompson back again.
That's right.
Surprise, surprise, right? But she talks about Tammy, that with Tammy, I would finally be able to be myself, all of myself, because there was always this part of me that kind of scared me, She talks about Tammy and Steve and her depression and her grades plummeting and whatever, and seeing this little version of herself, and that little me, I could hardly recognize her. She was so carefree and like fearless. She just loved every part of herself. And that's what hit me. It was never about tone deaf Tammy. It was always just about me. I was looking for answers in somebody else, but I had all the answers. I just needed to stop being so goddamn scared of who I really was. Once I did that, I felt so free. It's like I could fly, like I could finally be Rock and Robin, right? And this is what Brenner said to 11 in season 4. Brenner the best, your favorite character. Brenner says,
Robin the best.
Brenner says, you speak of monsters and superheroes. That's the stuff of myth and fairy tales. Reality, truth is rarely so simple. People are not so easily defined. Only by facing all of ourselves, the good and the bad, can we become whole. I want to quickly emphasize that when he says the good and the bad, and to compare this to Robin's speech, I'm not saying the queerness inside of you is accessing something bad inside of you. Obviously not. I don't feel that way. But like Robin is speaking more of like a part of you that you have been made to feel ashamed of, which, Mallory and I would both say we would hope people would not feel ashamed of that. But in the 1980s in Indiana, this is how it felt. So that idea of like the good and the bad encompasses a lot of things. And in this case specifically, it's like the vulnerable parts of you, the shame parts of you, all this sort of stuff like that. And I just love that idea, again, can come out of the mouth of someone like Brenner and out of the mouth of someone like Robin, but the concept is the same. And I think it's really, we've been talking about this for a few episodes now, really something we think we are progressing towards. Now, I mean, we already are here with Will doing that, right? But like, what does that mean for 11? Bad at detective work, good at hopping around over walls, sometimes bad at counting. But like, what further heights can 11 achieve with this embracing the whole aspect of her? How will this help Hopper or Joyce or anyone else who is feeling, Jonathan who's feeling, Dustin's who's feeling, like all these people who are feeling this, sense of wrongness inside them about something? How can they just, by being exactly themselves as Eddie wished Justin would be, how can they access their most powerful self? Which is just something that like I am really excited about. And I even think that is important, as we've already discussed, to consider with Henry. People are not so easily defined. Only by facing all of ourselves, the good and the bad, can we become whole. How can VH1 become one? How can Vecna Henry 1 3 become one, to paraphrase the Spice Girls, and just become like one person who like, can maybe defend against a larger threat. I don't know, but like these are the themes that seem very much on the Duffers' mind, and I love this because it's not so simplistic as you're the source of your power is love or your friendship, because again, that is very like life is hard and messy, and there's loss and there's grief, and like having all of that be what forms you. It's not just when your friends are paying attention to you and supporting you. It's also when your friends ditch you for girls, and when your friends don't want to play D&D with you, and like all of that stuff.
Yes.
Makes who you are, and all of you is worthy of admiration and power and flight. So I think this is an incredible message for this show to send everyone, the generations of people who are watching it together. So
that was lovely. I'm with you on how touching and moving, and I think really truly important this was, and how like it's just an incredibly like rewarding thing to watch as people who've been watching the show for so long. But I think you're really right to identify how, and like you said, we've heard from many people about this, just how meaningful this has been to so many people. Like there are I think moments in the show where the idea that this like, we get a version of it actually in a very different context. Joyce saying, of Derek, like sometimes people need someone to believe in them and then they can do amazing things. That's like a very literalized statement of a version of the message. But I still really liked it because Derek is a very different character than 11, than Will, than 8. But it's a way of saying even Derek is a part of this Stranger Things tradition.
Yeah.
Right? Even Derek, the question of like,
suck it, Chris Ryan.
Exactly. Suck a fat one. Chris. Now we just need to cut to like Robin and Chris side by side, like, well, Jesus, what? To your Henry VH1 tie there, like, I think there are a number of reasons that 8 is probably back in the story, and we'll talk about some more of them in a few minutes when we get to the Callie of it all. But I think this is potentially one of them. Like, 8 was one of the characters. Callie was one of the characters who her tutelage to 11, her guidance to 11 was rooted in channeling your rage and tapping into your anger. And to go from a place where we're like really going from, okay, that's over here, and then our other lessons are over here, into more of like a melded space. And also for 8, for Callie to be a character who helps 11 remember that for everything that Henry has done, and that's a long list of horrible shit, he was also another one, just like 11, just like 8, another one of Brenner's lab rats who was poked and
vulnerable
prodded.
child. Yeah.
And a kid who was turned into a thing that they could study and weaponize. And we heard Henry say it to 11 last season, like, Brenner wanted to start this program and then he had me and he could, right? So like, I think that idea of 8 as a source of newfound empathy or rediscovered empathy for Henry feels like it could be really crucial at the end here.
Absolutely. Something she tried in season 4.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not the monster, Papa's, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
so does 8 help her kind of get back to that? And is that really important to like how things conclude? The other thing, like, to your point, which I've really loved that you just made about like, it's not just we're playing D&D, like all just the pure happy memories. I think that what was so great about the Spy Shack, the in real time in season 2, the Spy Shack sequence with Joyce, Jonathan, and Will and Mike all trying to reach Will and how they reach him and what they call upon. And then they just gut, heart, soul wallop of seeing that here, I think really connects to what you just identified, which is like, those are really beautiful moments about friendship and belonging and the key relationships in your life, but every single one of them connects to something sad, right? Like those 2 young boys sitting alone, Mike and Will found each other because they were both alone.
Yeah,
like,
no friends.
Be my friend?
I don't know anyone. Yeah.
Oh my God. So like, of course it takes us to a beautiful place, but it started in a place of supreme loneliness and feeling like, am I going to find a friend? Am I going to find someone who I could eventually build a happy memory with? That's like devastating. To your point about Lonnie from earlier, Castle Byers. And that's why it killed us so deeply when we saw Will tear up the Ghostbusters picture and shred Castle Byers. It's like, because that was a refuge and a safe
sanctuary.
space.
Yeah,
sanctuary from the pain in their lives. Joyce saying like, my son drew that, and hanging the rainbow ship, and saying like, it's embarrassing to him, but she's like, I'm proud of you and all of the things that you love and all of the things that you can do. It's just great. And I really like across these 4 episodes, the way that we built toward that Robin Will moment in a way that because everything Robin says is just so moving and wonderful. And the payoff with Will and the Spy Shack memories is incredible. But there could be a version of it where you're like, do these characters, like, despite the 20 months off screen, like, know each other well enough to have a moment that's meaningful? But we got little bits. We marched toward that moment, with the hospital scenes and everything. You wanted more, not enough.
I could have taken a little bit more. I think we could have started where they already like know each other. It feels like they just had their first conversation at episode 1 when like we could have started for like a place of a little bit more familiarity and then built from there. I think there was room to do it that way, but
definitely versus like I saw that. I think that was like your bowl cut, right? Because no one else has that hair versus like, that's definitely my good friend Will, who I know very well.
Who I do adventures with constantly.
Yes, 37 cross deep at this point, folks. But like, I did really like their conversation about like what, the signals and how did you know? And like, I thought that was like a great
the avalanche.
Yeah, that was a great bridge. And like, in that conversation that Mike and Will have, which is obviously a key Mike and Will scene and Mike and Will moment, just Robin watching it and understanding, the look
what
on
that
Robin's
little touch
face.
means.
Yeah, what that means.
Yeah.
And what Will is going through.
In contrast to like Will, which we get a flash of course, when Vecna's like, you're weak. Will stifling, Jonathan observing him in the rearview mirror, but Will just like sort of stifling his crying and looking out the window. To have Jonathan observe him in season 4 and reach out to him, and to have Robin observe him here and reach out to him is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good stuff. Okay.
On the Mike front, I'll just say also very quickly, like, I do really like that Mike, who spent all series doing the like you're a superhero thing with Elle, did that with Will. That's
Mike really shown up on the Mike as the heart front inside of these episodes, as we discussed a little bit last week, and we will get to the way that Mike looks at Will when he reveals his superpowers. Let's just pause before we get there. We're gonna talk about the Callie reveal.
Yeah,
and I don't think we need to linger on. You and I hated the goddamn fake out death. We thought it was so stupid. Okay, I will say this. Especially since they already did it with Hopper in season 3.
That's
It's just preposterous to do it again here. It is, to me, we've been talking for a couple episodes now about like, do they need to kill off someone in the main cast? One of the Wheelers should die. I already said that. Karen or Ted should die or whatever. But like, do they need to kill off one of the kids, one of the adults that we have been with from the start? Does that need to happen in order for it to feel like the finale was worth something? And you and I think both agree that like, you don't need to do that. But if you're not going to do that, to say in every interview, it's the final season, the stakes couldn't be higher, anything could happen. And then to hand us in the first 4 episodes, 3 fake out deaths of Ted and Karen and Hop here is, I think that sucks. Like, I think that sucks to play with people's expectations and emotions about it's the final season, anything could happen. Now is not the time, I think, to do that. I don't like that. So don't do it. But they already did it. So, oh well, here we are.
I kind of can't believe we got the Hop fake out again. And I think like we've chronicled at length, I was glad that Hop was not dead at the end of season 3. And I think in real time, even as we mourned, there was so much fodder for theorizing his return, right, to like the American,
Totally.
But yeah, frankly, like, I think that the fact that they did this again with him, it's like, I was saying this yesterday to Chris on the watch, but like, it's the first time I thought maybe Hop's safe, actually. But I'm with you completely. We've talked about this many times, not just with Stranger Things, but with other stories. I bring up like Infinity War and the Snap a lot when talking about this. I got to come up with some other references, but like, I do not believe that the only stake in a story is death. And especially, given the conversation we had last pod about what might the end mean for like a character like 11, is there a loss of powers? Is there the Shire's been safe, but not for me, like just a separate kind of reality or existence, all of that. There are a number of really impactful, meaningful, and perhaps tragic things that can still await our characters outside of just death.
Right.
But
Spoilers.
Taunting us with the idea of a character dying and then not doing it. It's like, it's the Hop thing twice. It was Max. And again, we're thrilled Max is here, but like, this is now kind of the habit. I think it's strange.
Speaking of strange, not strange, Callie's here. I actually love this.
We both use the exact same word, the chutzpah.
The chutzpah.
Yeah.
The absolute chutzpah. What's been really funny in the press around this season is the kids keep dropping, not the kids, they're adults now, the younger cast members,
grown adults,
keep dropping all these comments about how everyone hated that season 2 episode.
Yeah.
Finn had like a really funny bit about it. Millie Bobby Brown was talking about it. Like they've been just like, everyone loved season 2. It was everyone's favorite season. They loved that one episode, like all this sort of stuff like that. So like they're joking about it in a way that's really fun and really self-aware. And so for the Duffers to do what I loved speaking of Infinity War, what I love to talk about in the end of the MCU's 10-year chunk is this idea in Endgame of wrapping your arms around the bumpier spots in your... Mallory's going to come through with some preposterous Thor the Dark World defense, but to make Thor the Dark World
great movie,
widely recognized as a weak installment in the MCU, integral and emotional part of Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
I loved that. It strengthens the whole. It tightens the weave on the entire tapestry. And so to wrap your arms around Kali and make her, we don't know how she's going to be used, but she is here.
Yep.
And they've said in interviews, like, it's important that she's here. To then say, like, fuck you. We're not going to pretend we didn't do that thing in season 2. We did it, and we're going to make it matter. We got another go at it. And is it going to be successful? We don't know, but I'm excited to see them try. And, I never had anything against that actress or anything like that. So like, I think it's really exciting. You and I had some questions about the hedgehog being the name of the various devices they use to sonically incapacitate 11, the kryptonite is.
They're incredible Hulk sonic cannons. Yeah.
Hopper termed it. Detective 11 was like, oh, that's Vecna. I know they're channeling Vecna's power to do that. So then I assumed that it was 8's power that they were using instead to channel that. But you pointed out that the beams seem to be pointed at her. So what's your sense, scientist Mallory Rubin, of like what's powering the hedgehog? And is it or is it not related to 8's powers?
I don't know, and I think either thing is possible. Also, perhaps both things are possible. I don't know that they have to be mutually exclusive. Actually, I think like the idea of turning one of these superpowered kids into a battery that you use to charge your weapons to control that person and also others who have their powers feels plausible to me. I think that I had also assumed that whatever I also was like whatever's behind whomever, and then we're ahead of 11 that it's going to be Kali, is back there, is powering this weapon. Yeah. That's what I thought too. The fact that they seem to be, because like you can't allow 8 to just like use her powers against you if you're K. So I do think it makes sense, especially, and they did seem to be positioned in that they are dampening her powers so that she can't be a threat. That to me does not mean they're not also using her in some way, either to somehow fuel that same tech, or there are blood bags everywhere. There are IVs in both arms. There are blood bags everywhere. We've been talking for every pod we've done across the rewatch. Henry just uses the light, like when he's talking about his history in season 4, he's like, and then he got me, and then he started his program, and like the blood, we've talked about our theories over the seasons about that. They have 8's blood in many bags there. Either is it someone else's blood that they're giving her? Are they taking her blood to then power up other people? Are they trying to make other superpowered people from 8's blood?
Right.
I think that's all possible on the theory corner front. We have before these hedgehogs seen other power dampeners. We had the collars, right, that Brenner used. And of course, we also had the Soteria neck pellet. So then I'm kind of like,
lysine contingency.
Yeah, yes. Are these like, is that tech related? Is the hedgehog sonic cannon just a more kind of robust military
directional
convoy version of the same thing? We don't know exactly how the collars or that neck pellet worked unless we learn that somewhere else.
Yeah.
So like they have the ability to dampen the powers, whether it's feeling them or not, I don't know. I was thinking back to that like part of Eddie's campaign in season 4 in Hellfire, that like, the Vecna just decimated us. We can't kill him with just 2 players line. So we have this great moment. We've always had our like, Elle's got her superpowers, but we have the whole party. And then in season 3, Elle doesn't have her powers, etc. Right? Into season 4. Shout out Mr. Fibley. The return of 8 here then, and this idea that like, because Will's powered up.
Got 3.
You got to have 3 or more.
I believe you need the whole party, as Lucas said. You got to get Max back too. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now the time that at least some people have been waiting for. We got to talk about Byler.
Yes.
What is that? Some of you at home are maybe saying. We've been talking about the ship wars for every episode of our rewatch. We neglected to talk about this ship, and we got actually several salty emails about this, and I actually think they were right to call us out for not talking about this. It is the Will Byers, Mike Wheeler ship, the Byler ship. There have been so many like essays and posts and edits and stuff like that about how people think this is actually something they're going to do in the final season. I do not, mostly based on the way that like Finn has talked about it and some of the Duffer brothers have talked about it. Like they're very aware of it. They know it's a thing. But like I think they're not going to do it. That doesn't mean it's not worth talking about though.
Yeah,
obviously Will is in love with Mike.
No question.
Yeah, without question.
Yes.
Mike, I think, is tragically entirely heterosexual. But like, who's to say? Listen, we're teenagers, we're figuring shit out. And I do think it is fair for the Byler shippers to say the final shot of this chunk of episodes, when Will reveals his superpowers and wipes the nosebleed away, much the way that 11 has for years. And Mike looks at him in a way that is like, if you want to interpret it as heart eyes, I support you in that.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
All of the edits about like Mike really has a type, or Will saw who Mike had a crush on, so he turned himself into 11, or like all that sort of stuff like that, I really support. And in terms of like the way in which they may or may not be feeding the Byler fandom, I will say Mike and Will rolling around on the bathroom floor sopping wet together is not them feeding that ship fandom. So
for sure. Yeah.
Byler people, I think this is the most perhaps the most you're ever gonna feast. And if you get more fodder, I welcome all that comes for you. But I just wanted to honor you and recognize you out there. You matter in the fandom. And
co-sign.
Yeah. Big time. So yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think that we are actually going to get a romantic Mike and Will relationship at the end of the show. I don't think that seems like where we're heading, but Will's feelings for Mike are a central part of his journey and his journey of discovery and everything that we've witnessed with his character. That's obviously just been core. And I think that like their relationship and their friendship and all aspects of their relationship and what they mean to each other, really returning to the center of like, not just their experience in the various dynamics in the group, but to the show is like so important. So important. So I've really loved, like, I thought it was just great to see them together in such a meaningful capacity, like full stop. But I felt so important that Mike was like, yeah, you're the sorcerer because your powers are innate. And like, you're this amazing person.
Even if I do not count myself among the like most avid Byler shippers, I will say that like, it matters to me as someone who like wants people to be good friends to each other, to like watch Mike like help Joyce pick Will up, or like, you know, there's just like all these moments where Mike is like paying attention to Will.
Yes, exactly.
And there have been several seasons where it feels like Mike completely forgot that Will was like his best friend.
Exactly.
You know,
paying attention to things, that's how we show love. Like
it matters to me. So obviously that's, you know, we've already talked about this Will moment and what it means outside of the Byler ship, but this is just an absolutely fucking incredible way to end a stretch of episodes.
Dynamite.
I thought it looked great, like the way the demos were like frozen in air and like straining against his power and stuff like that. And then to watch them snap the way that we watched Chrissy and Fred and Max all like snap was incredibly satisfying. I love Noah has talked about how they really tried to finesse the way his gesturing worked, so it didn't look the same as 11, so that they did like sort of his palm up, sort of a clutching gesture, the eyes widening out, just like all of it, and the nose wipe. I mean, it was just like really great sci-fi fantasy stuff, sci-fi fantasy television moment. I had a great time with it. So yeah. Anything else you want to say about this ending moment?
Let's see. Loved the full, you know, the Night King raising my demo army moments from, you know, we talked about Vader and we talked about the stretchy Groot vine arm. boy, the
branches through the face.
The branches through the face. That was disturbing, I gotta say.
I sent you a photo of that when I was watching, and we were watching again a couple days in front of Thanksgiving, and I was like, "Happy Thanksgiving, man!" Like I was just imagining like children fun. At home with their families watching like a soldier get branches through the face. It was a lot, but yeah,
genuinely like very intense and harrowing and disturbing, but certainly not the first time that we've seen violent things on Stranger Things. But that one will stick with me as a visual. But yeah, we got the Night King too, so that's very fun. You know, I think we've hit a lot of the like the Harry Voldemort Horcrux stuff. Obviously, we've been talking about this since season 2. But I mean, right down to like visual pairings of how the two characters are positioned in the scene together. But back in our season 2 pod, and since season 2 first aired, been talking about this like, okay, what happens in season 2 with the idea of the spy is just like basically like overtly the Order of the Phoenix, Department of Mysteries. The Horcrux connection leads to this ability to like, what can you see through somebody's mind or eyes, and how can that be weaponized against you, et cetera. So I really like how that was like how that was advanced in this stretch of episodes with, again, like we talked about, this idea of Will's connection to the hive mind and maybe being able to like tap into that and control it and use it, not just feel like that's a vulnerability of his. That's great. I think though, like this other thing then with the idea of how Will's powers are activated, we have the really beautifully thematic idea of the powers being innate. Will can tap into the Spy Shack memories, the source of all of this joy and beauty and heart in his life. This on the Vecna tie front and the like Voldemort comp front, then there's the Horcrux. How did we get there? Right? There's this like aspect of the prophecy, the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. That was then very top of mind for me watching this sequence with Will powering up to become the sorcerer, because like you have this question of okay, why Will? Right? And so like then I'm thinking, all right, well, mark him as his equal, Will being able to tap into the hive mind to power up, we've got that. But like Voldemort chose Harry, not Neville, because of what he saw in Harry and those like similarities, right? So then we think about why Will. We have all the other stuff we already talked about today with like the various characters that Henry has maybe ties to in his past, etc. But just like if we go back to some of those things that Henry said to Eleven, to Jane, it's like we can apply them to Will, right? Like you, I didn't fit in with other children, with the other children. You know, something was wrong with me. All the teachers and the doctors said I was broken. They said, like, that's not a perfect comp, but this idea of like, he's identifying something in the people he's picking, right? And that feels like notable and important. So that parallel, I think, is just kind of inescapable and was literalized quite specifically here.
Yeah, I think Joy's talking to Hopper in season 1 about Will, you know, and she's like, you know, Lonnie's gone queer. Like, you know, she's just like identifying that like before he was taken, there was something about Will that like othered him,
right?
You know, even inside of this like little friend group that he had. So thank you for always taking us to Mallory Rubin, Harry Potter PhD corner. It's just inescapable. I think it's really interesting that they're not talking about it, but it is inescapably something that they're doing. And so I think what's maybe even more interesting to me is the differences that they find inside of this story.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
We've hit so many aspects of that Henry stretch with 11 in season 4. I think maybe one of the few lines we haven't really just talked about much today is like stands out anew given Max and Holly exploring his mind palace, the way that he said, I became an explorer. That's another interesting little aspect of that to circle back to now. Yeah.
A cruel, oppressive world dictated by made-up rules. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, week, month, years, decades. The guy loves the clock. All right. 2 more sections to go.
Yeah.
We're doing theory corner and unanswered questions. Then we're doing some play stuff. You can choose your own adventure of what you stay for. If you're leaving, bye. We'll see you, you know, hopefully for Best Fights of the Century later this week.
Yes.
Theory Corner and unanswered questions are just theories.
Mm-hmm.
Uninformed necessarily by play stuff.
Right.
And unanswered questions. I want to start with 2 unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Number 1, what are the rest of the Turnbows doing? Did they just leave them in that barn? Our listener Anto sort of wrote in about this, but I was wondering this question. Just to be clear, It's the same night. It's all one night. The pie dinner feeds into Derek going into the maxi, into everything else. So like they could still be sleeping off the effects of the pie, but there's no one guarding them because Erica and Joyce, everyone's out in the field. So like, did they just leave them in that barn? Did they leave them to like blearily wander home and find their house in a wreck? Like, what is happening with the rest of the Turnbows? Will we ever find out?
Nobody seems concerned, much like nobody seems concerned about Ted Wheeler. So
great. How long did Vicky just wait for Robin at Enzo's? And follow-up question, has anyone ever had a good date at Enzo's? Robin not like telling Vicky that she can't make her date, but rather just hiding from her?
Not Robin. The best. I know. I get it. She's like, I can only make so many excuses without being able to tell her what's really going on in my life, but superhero secret identity shit. But like,
tell her.
Exactly. Why can't Vicky be in on it?
I wonder if that's going to happen in the back half of the season. Like if we're setting this up for Vicky being like, you tell me what's going on, and Robin telling her something like that. Okay. We've already discussed this whole, I bled it into the main discussion, this idea of Henry trying to, quote, save the children, which is something that I like talked about earlier, but I don't think there's anything else I have to say about this. I think we already talked about it. Anything else you want to say on this front?
I guess who else is invited? We've got these 12 kids. He's obviously lying outright to Holly. He's like, we'll bring the adults later.
I mean, is he? I don't know. Does he think he can save, quote unquote, save everyone?
Does he need the 12 to power his wormhole meat wall clock? And then after that, there's plenty of whipped cream and fresh blackberries at the party.
Joe Rowling wishes she had ever come up with a wormhole meat wall clock, but she didn't. God. So here we are. All right. Speaking of time.
Yeah.
Here's a trio of emails we got from listeners. Courtney says, Elle can warp time. She can access memories of the past. Callie can warp reality, projecting images that are not really there. Will can warp space by using his powers in multiple places at one time. Mm-hmm. Our superheroes, is her theory, our superheroes will have to warp time, space, and reality to create a wormhole / wrinkle in time to save Max and Holly / find Vecna. I thoroughly hope this will mean we get a brief Erica Sinclair monologue where she has to dumb down quantum physics to everyone and explain how they can accomplish their plan, because who among them can understand quantum physics aside from Lady Applejack? So,
I love this.
I love this.
I do actually have like, I guess, an open question about whether they're retconning the fact that like the kids all have different powers. Obviously the will point, I think that's a really big, like Dustin, we now have 3 data points and we can plot our course. So I think that's valid. But when we met Callie in season 2, it seemed like, okay, maybe every one of these kids has
very
a
X-Men
distinct
sort of
power set. And then it seemed, at least, I mean, we really only saw like 10 and 2. But it seemed, I mean, we saw some of the other ones actually like use their powers when they were ganging up to bully Elle and in the push your fellow out of the circle trial. It did seem like they all had the same powers, I thought, in the
You're right. They kind of flattened it to like telekinesis.
Yeah. So
broadly.
Then I'm like, does Callie still have different powers, or are they changing that? I guess if they're bringing her back, they can't like really change her powers. That would be weird. But then why is she the only one with different powers? I don't know. Not the neatest and tidiest thing they've ever done on the show, but that's okay. I'm with you ultimately that I'm glad that they're trying to like make this work.
Like I wouldn't be surprised if 11 could do what we just saw Will do, but we haven't seen her quite do that. Right? Like he projects all the way out to that field where Robin and Murray are. That's like so far. It's not just like Lucas down in the tunnel, but it's like all the way out to the radio station, essentially, past the radio station.
Yeah, and his power really connecting to like his particular hive mind connection is like also, distinct or specific to him.
Okay. Thomas says,
this is a great one.
Or Tomas says, I love the Nat 20 theory. I've seen on Reddit. Pause. If you've never played D&D, the best roll you can do is a natural 20, which is just like a 20 on a 20-sided dice. And that's like, in terms of your chances of surviving something, Nat 20 is like creme de la creme. All right. So Thomas says, I love the Nat 20 theory I've seen on Reddit that season 4, episode 1 predicts Elle 11 and Callie 8 and Will/Vecna or Wecna 1 need to be united to defeat whoever's in charge of the Upside Down 20, just like Hellfire needed to throw 20 in Eddie's campaign. So 11 plus 8 plus 1 equals 20. Anything you want to say about this other than you love it?
This is great. Crit hit, as Erica would say. It's great.
All right, here's something we think is less great. Not that this idea, just if they do it. Ray says, the more I think about it, the more I think Callie will survive until that battle to be the convenient death scapegoat. They do have a habit of bringing characters into the season, fleshing them out, making you like them, and killing them so that the death feels like real consequences. I don't think consequences is actually the word I'm looking for, but I can't find it. A la Bob and Eddie, or I guess Barb, if you cared about her. I'm with you on that one, Joanna. She sucked. Wow. Mallory erasure on the Barb hate train. But anyway, Callie being the consequential death of the season, you and I hate that.
I don't want to be a dick. But because we have 4 episodes and I think 6.5 or 7 hours left, right? We have a lot of time left still. So could my feeling on this front change? Yeah. Right now, what I am prepared to say with confidence is that it would have next to no impact on me if Callie died. So the idea that would be
but I will say, even if they do, even if they really Eddie her up and make us care so much about her only to kill her, I'm that feels shitty to me.
Yeah.
To bring back the character just to kill her because you don't feel like killing any of your main characters.
Yeah.
I think that sucks.
That would be bad.
All right. Elena or Alana, I think Elena. This is some time travel stuff. This is right up Mallory Rubin's alley. We also get a Harry Potter reference here. Who opened the gate the night Will was nabbed? And we talked about this a little bit last week. Young Elle opening it has been a popular fan theory. However, I think it may end up being older 11 who opens that door. Mm-hmm. What if she ends up traveling back to that night and then realizes she had to be the one to set those events in motion or to eventually defeat Vecna? Without Will being taken, Elle probably would have been killed, locked up in the lab again, or just wandered around alone. All the times they've put a stop to Vecna / the Mind Flayer would have never been possible without Will's disappearance. Full stop from Elena. So I will say, she references Prisoner of Azkaban in her her email, which is Harry and Hermione were always the ones who cast the Patronus, the one who made this sound, the one who threw the stone, et cetera, et cetera.
I knew I could do it because I'd already done it.
This is also, if we want to get closer to the 80s references, 80s, 90s references, the Back to the Future 3 theory, where we see Marty McFly creeping around the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, doing stuff behind the scenes, or Endgame, if you prefer an MCU column. So, I find those stories enormously satisfying to watch your characters creep around a story we're already quite familiar with is, I think, extremely fun. Yeah. And if it always happened because they had to do it, again, this is a theory we've been sort of circling for a little while now. Yeah. I sort of thought it would be Will who would have to make that decision, and I kind of like that as Will has to choose to be taken. Is a cleaner thing to me than 11 has to choose for Will to be taken. You know what I mean? Will has to make the decision that the trauma that he went through is worth the journey to become the person he has become. Is interesting to me. I'm not convinced of it, but it's interesting to me.
Yeah, I definitely think that something like this, exact characters, exact circumstances, TBD, but I think something like this seems very, very probable. Very, very likely. I will not be at all surprised if this happens. I might be a touch surprised at this point if it doesn't.
Yeah.
Not disappointed, but just I think it's we're really pointing toward that outcome.
We love a November 6th event. Okay. We already read Sarah's excellent email about Ted Wheeler coming into Camazotz. Love that. What berry dessert will he have? Who knows? And then Trevor wrote, this is sort of about the cleric nature of Holly the heroic, right?
Yeah.
Trevor writes, I think Holly will, quote, resurrect Max and enable her escape from the mind prison. Lucas was pleading with Max to, quote, resurrect when he's in the hospital with her. And resurrection is a notable cleric power in D&D. I think the dimension door Holly will open will be a portal to Max's physical side, where Lucas is playing running up that hill in the real world, like the one Max couldn't get to in her flashback story to Holly. Holly will help Max get through it this time. Episode
Seems
6,
right.
Escape from Camazotz.
Seems right. I guess like not to go all like why did Sabine get in the Force? Which is like, as you know, actually not how I felt about it, and I think kind of a bit of a blight in the internet era. It's like a tendency, but caveat issued. And we talked last pod. It just seems clear that the Holly the heroic scene is setting up that the use of those powers, the dimension door, etc. I think that is likely to happen in some capacity. I would like to see that happen. I am a little bit like, how many of the kids can develop some sort of magical power in the final season of the show? Cautious, though. I think that that's like a line to walk with care.
Where do you draw the line? Which kid has to get powers for you to be like, no?
That's the thing. I'm like, but it would be pretty cool if like Lucas had powers. Like, it would be pretty cool if
Steve is like, I can levitate things. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess like part of the reason I feel that way, actually, let me see if I can figure out how to articulate this. Like, I don't want the show to run. I think it's cool if the kids get powers. That's great. That, to your beautiful point from earlier, the idea of like a story where the supernatural is at the fore, literalizing the belief that you find in yourself, I think is great. I'm a little wary of if that swings into the kind of too much volume. The show maybe inadvertently running afoul of one of its other really important messages, which is like, you don't literally need superpowers to make a difference. I think that's actually a little bit of a risk.
For me, it's if Mike gets powers. That's the line I draw.
Of course it's not for you.
No. Which is actually not about my hatred for Mike. It's about how much I am valuing Mike as like a guy
just
this
a dude.
Season. Just a dude being a guy.
So, bro,
it feels like it matters that he's there to like be an anchor for 11 or Mike or whoever else. You know what I mean? Like I like that. That's actually a praise of Mike and not a knock of Mike. All right. Yeah. That's it for Theory Corner, unless there's anything else you want to say in Theory Corner.
I don't think so.
Okay. No. Big horns sounding. Those are small horns. Big horns sounding. This is something I wrote down several times without saying it out loud. Stage show script reader corner. If you're watching on video, they just put a very handy little caption down at the bottom. It says stage show script reader corner. This is spoilers.
Yeah.
For Stranger Things First Shadow of play you could go see right now if you had a lot of expendable income and time.
Yeah.
We get some answers. So there's your warning. Bye. Okay.
Yep.
A lot of the questions you might have. Why is VH1 so scared of that cave? We know the answers if we know the stage show. And some of us have read some summaries and some of us have seen the show. So the cave in Nevada.
Yeah. According
to the stage play, this was Henry's first time being possessed by the Mind Flayer. He disappeared for 12 hours, like Will, though not as long as Will, into a place called, quote, Dimension X, like a pre-upside down hell dimension, not quite the upside down. This is how Henry first got his powers. So this is something that we kind of talked around a little bit, and I felt bad for telling you, but here we are. This idea that the Mind Flayer definitely infected young Henry Creel, not that Henry Creel invented the Mind Flayer. So the Mind Flayer is a malevolent force that corrupted Henry Creel, who was just a boy, a sweet boy. And then he came back wrong because he was Mind Flayer infected and he started mutilating animals, which is not great and the like. But in the stage play, they make it very clear that when Henry does these things, kill his family, mutilate an animal, etc. There is an effect on the stage play that like the mind flayer sort of looms up behind him. So it's very clear that he is being possessed by, infected by the mind flayer when he does that. He has these powers. There is this character, as you pointed out, Patty Newby is like a main character of the show. It's Bob's sister, Bob's adopted sister, Patty Newby, is like young Henry Creel. How young? 12, 14, 16? Who's to say? Is high school age Henry Creel's girlfriend, is like love interest. And she's like, you can use your powers for good. And so he like does a couple times use his powers for good. So there's this idea that like they're before the grace. So there's the positive force of Patty Newby. And then there's, wouldn't you know it, fucking Brenner, right?
Always.
To go back to Nevada, without the stage show, we knew that the Nina Project was in Nevada. We knew that Sam and Kathy Owens live in Nevada. Like we knew that there was stuff happening in Nevada without the stage show. What you know if you've seen the stage show or read a summary of it is that Brenner, a young Brenner, was in Nevada working on something he called imaginatively the Nevada Project, where he was trying to find Dimension X because of something that happened to his father. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about his dad. I don't have time to get into it. But that means that Brenner followed Henry to Hawkins, not vice versa. And this was a question you were asking. Was there something about Hawkins that both Brenner and Henry was there? Well, the reason anyone's there is that Henry took his mind flayer infected self. Actually, the Creel family was like, there's something wrong with our child. I know, let's move to Indiana. Moved to Indiana, and Brenner, in a hot pursuit of answers about dimensions and gates and all this sort of stuff like that, follows the Creel family to Hawkins. Any questions, comments, concerns, intriguing flags on the field about this, Mallory Rubin?
Just again, abject bafflement that they chose to put this out in the world in this capacity, when it would be one thing if this like came out
after.
Yeah, this came out after and it's an origin story, great. Or if like we had this information about Henry much earlier in the show. But for them to be setting up these reveals in the show in the final 4 episodes of a 5-season, 10-year project, and some of this information to be out there already for some people, but in a limited capacity to glean, is one of the weirder, baffling, like expanded universe things that I can remember. I don't love it. It sounds like a great story. I'm excited to see it brought to the screen. I just don't love the like. I don't know. I just think that's very odd. Anyway,
I agree.
I'm sure no shade to anybody doing the play. I'm sure the play is amazing. But.
And I feel very bad exposing you to this, but I also feel weird not.
We should just have gone to
it.
The play. We should. That's what we should have done.
We should have.
We should have just gotten on a fucking. Maybe we still can.
I will say visually, like I'm sure they're going to show us young Henry Creel, however old he looks, in that cave, having this experience.
Yeah. Yes.
Or monologuing about it, I suppose. But I will just say visually, even though this took place in Moab, Utah, it reminded me so much of like the origin story of Indiana Jones. Like how did Indiana Jones become Indiana Jones? River Phoenix in the sort of the warm colored stones of Utah. This is what the Nevada sort of sequence reminded me of.
I wonder if this will just be like a couple quick beats catching us up on all of this.
Once again, in the stage show, people are like, I know all about this. And people at home are like, what am I watching? Like, it's just.
Yeah. And like kind of keeping it, because it's crucial, but condensing it a little bit.
Oh, they're definitely going to have to condense it.
Yeah. And then like more of the, I guess the Dimension X into then the upside down of it all. Like there's still a lot to explore there. That this
But this idea that like
answer.
Henry is just a victim, the way that Will or a vulnerable person preyed upon, the way that Will was and the way that 11 was, you know, is a key source, and why you see so many theories out there about people being like, Henry not so bad actually, because like they have this background information from the play, knowing that like he was just an ordinary kid and then got infected by the mind flayer. And so is there a way to uninfect him, you know?
Right. And that'll be an interesting, because I think there's plenty, even if you have no exposure to the details of First Shadow, I think there's plenty with the appeals that 11 made to Henry in season 4 about what and even what he said to her about Papa Lies, and like, which we talked about at the time, like was true, you know, and the look that we see on his face when he won't follow Max to the cave. There's plenty pointing, and many other examples pointing already to like what happened to this kid that led to this place? I'm interested to see, given what you shared about like the effect in the production of like, okay, he's been in these moments where he's done these things. There's this other guiding hand and this force. Like at a certain point, there's a culpability, right? For like, I have chosen to do these things.
Well, that's why I don't think he gets to live happily ever after.
Yeah. And that's the like, you know, I think before the first shadow intel came into our lives, we still were using the term there, but for the grace to describe the so many parallels between, you know, Henry and Eleven. And like, we've seen Eleven do terrible things too. Back in season 1, we saw Eleven just go like this and snap some necks and squish some eyeballs, just like Henry ended up doing. We see 11 mistime a jump in this episode.
And then she's like, sorry,
gotta snap your neck. It's like, what if you just kind of like choked him out a little? I don't know. But yeah, so I think that's all.
What if he just like broke a leg? You know what I mean?
Yeah, incapacitate without fatal. But again, you know, learning from Hop. When Hop's like, you're just like me, and then putting people in the
and then Hopper being like, I'll kill thousands of people in order to save the one person.
Yeah. You know, this is not the place in the pod for this, but I was, despite the not liking the death fake out and feeling baited by it again, when he was like, I love you, Jane, I was like, I am really touched by this.
I love you, Jane was
that got
very
me.
Good.
I was waiting for her to call him dad.
Aww.
Like I was waiting for her to say dad. I think we'll get that probably.
I agree.
Maybe in our third death fake out, we'll get a dad. Continue.
She says, at one point she says Hop. Yeah. And Diana, who I was watching with, was like, did she say Pop? And I was like, no, it's Hop. All right. The spyglass. Holly grabs the spyglass, uses it, takes the cap off of it, blah, blah, then drops it. Mm-hmm. Henry's spyglass is left behind when he's taken, and it's the clue that Brenner uses to track him. So that was just like a little sort of Easter egg. The idea of the dropped spyglass as like a clue or something like that.
That seemed, without this knowledge, it seemed clear to me that the spyglass was something specific.
Right. The camera's zooming in on it, dropped on the ground.
And like we're looking through with the cap on it, it's warped, all that. Are the scorpions that we linger on the rock like also an Easter egg to the play? We really
not that I
panned
know
in on
of.
them for a while. I was like, what's going on with that? Okay.
Having only read synopses, I do not know. Okay.
We only have 900 pods to record between now and the end of the year. Should we get on planes?
Yes.
And go to New York and see this show?
I think so. Oklahoma.
Yeah.
This is bothersome to me, but in the play's continuity, which I guess is canon or whatever, this November 6th play happens the same night Henry allows the Mind Flayer to take him over and kills his family. So it's March in season 4, but I guess now it's November 6th. The Creel family died.
Stranger Things, a show we love, once had to go into Netflix after a season aired and update Will's birthday, which they got wrong. So...
Vecna obsessed with time, the Duffers not so much. Vecna loves the clock, the Duffers never heard of her. Okay. Also, November 6th, the night of Oklahoma, is the night, spoilers again for this show, that Henry, who is in love with Patty, lets Brenner goad him essentially into letting the Mind Flayer take over him and tosses her off the rafters of the theater. So, and then he thinks she's dead, but then he finds out that she's not dead. So I don't know where Patty Newby is. If they think they have time to bring Patty Newby into the mix in these final episodes, I think they need to look at their watches. But this is November 6th, the night he killed his family, and crucially, the girl he loved and who believed in him. So
okay,
tough.
Jeez. Bleak.
All right. Clock stuff. I don't need to go too much in the clock stuff because it's kind of vaguely referenced in the play, but I will say I think it matters that Holly is in the Creel house and has access to all of his stuff, his scout uniform and anything else he might have left around that might show clues into his backstory or something like that.
Right.
Blood stuff. It's made very clear by the play that Brenner uses Henry's blood to basically inject it into the pregnant women to make these other children. So like, it's not that Henry is Eleven's biological father. Blood father.
Yes.
If you want to call it that,
and
but not,
I think we've speculated and theorized about versions of this over the years. I think that this always seemed, even just in the universe of the show, by an order of magnitude, the most likely thing. that they were using, that Brenner was using his blood to power up the other kids versus like, I mean, this is like a child. Like what else is he taking from him? You know? So I think that the show was pointing there in a way that like, I guess the play confirming it is a degree beyond, but that feels in keeping with what we were expecting.
I do want to go back to something I forgot to mention when I was talking about the cave stuff. And then I'm almost done. And then we're done with this whole podcast. What a joy. What a delight we have had together. But a listener, Lena, was clever to cite the Hopper line to Jane to 11, which is, remember the hurt, it means you're out of that cave. So that idea that like Henry is still forever in that cave because of this original wound that happened to him. So the cave is like a metaphor, but a literalization for Henry. Will we hear that language again? I don't know, but on rewatch, I'm sure it will just like feel very significant or something like that. Yeah.
Love that.
Last but not least, the will piece. This email comes from our listener, Lauren, who is using some stage show knowledge to inform her, right? She says, begrudgingly accepting that Vecna, as we know him, is kind of a host for the Mind Flayer. I think that Will was meant to replace Henry as a host. Both were kids who vanished on the same day and came back attached to the Mind Flayer / Dimension X. In season 2, we see the Mind Flayer effectively possess Will, but that connection is disrupted. Perhaps luring him into the hive mind as he does to take out the Demogorgons is another way to open that gate into his mind to make him a new potential host. In the words of Nick Fury in Avengers, doors open from both sides. Further, if Vecna takes in the people he kills into his mind like Max, maybe the reverse will also happen with Will killing Vecna, allowing Vecna / the Mind Flayer to enter his mind. Very Star Wars-esque. Anyway, Will is like, I kind of like this idea. There's a part of me that likes this idea that Henry in season 1 is like, I'm tired of this shit. Here, take this, fresh child.
I've put in my time.
Will you unleash me let me go?
I'm ready for a new opportunity and a new challenge.
Exactly. This kid's fresh. Take him. Look at his bowl cut. You'll love him. I don't know. Anyway, all of it is very, very intriguing. And as you say, and I really agree with you, despite the fact that I read all these spoilers for myself of my own free will, baffling that this information isn't accessible in the form in which it's intended, which is, I have heard, a beautifully staged, like the dazzlingly stage crafted, because I think there's a sequence in the play where we see the Mind Flayer go inside Henry like the smoke monster effect that happened to Will in season 2. Imagining that happening on a stage, sounds so cool and exciting. So you let me know when we're flying to New York and I'll meet you there. And anything else you want to say other than our ongoing distress that this is how this information is being conveyed to us?
No, I don't think so. I'm sad that we only have 4 episodes left. I think they're going to land it. I feel pretty confident that this is going to end in a really strong way, but I'm mourning the end of the show. Yeah. Like, it's just really.
I had a moment where I got confused previously before I did the notes for the first installment, where I mistakenly remembered it as 441. So I thought we had 5 more episodes left, but we only have 4 more episodes left. Now, again, of
meaty ones,
chunky little meat walls waiting for us. But yeah, all right. I love talking to you about Stranger Things.
Same.
I love that we've been spending months thinking about this world. I feel properly prepared for this. We will be back with Best Fights of the Century at the end of this week and many other goodies, including Percy Jackson, Fallout, speaking of noseless, charismatic characters, et cetera, et cetera. And some end of year sort of looking back stuff, as we like to do. Thank you to Mallory Rubin.
Thank you to Joanna Robinson.
To ever do it.
Joe the Wise.
Thank you to Mike Wargon, Wargs, and Chris Thomas CT here helping us out.
Legends.
Carlos is still traveling back home from Thanksgiving. So happy for Carlos to have that break as well. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to Arjuna Ramgopowell for his work, always tireless, ceaseless work on this podcast, and to Jomi Adeniran for his incredible work on the social. Jomi, I know, has been on the Stranger Things memes. So I'm excited to see what he has to cook up here. And we'll be back soon. And we love you always. And we'll see you in Kemazotz. Bye.